Good evening, and I'd like to welcome everybody to the regular meeting of the Kernersville Board of Aldermen. Today is Tuesday, February 2nd. This is a remote meeting, so we'll begin. Well, I guess we'll begin with echoes tonight. All right, I'd like to begin with a roll call of the elected officials and staff that are present at this meeting. Mayor Pro Tem Jenny Fulton.
Present. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Kenny Cruz.
Present. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Chris Thompson.
Present. Thank you.
Alderman Joe Penix.
Present. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Bruce Boyer.
Present. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And for purposes of checking his microphone, I'd like to welcome Sheriff Bobby Kimbrough here tonight.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Town Manager Curtis Swisher.
Present. Thank you.
Thank you. Town Attorney John Wolf.
Yes, Mayor, I'm here. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Assistant Town Attorney Ed Powell.
Present. Thank you.
Thank you. Kernersville Fire Rescue Chief Scott Alderman.
Present. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Kernersville Police Chief Tim Summers.
Present. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Our Town Clerk Keith Hooker.
Present.
Thank you. Our Business Analyst for Information Technology, Mateus Silva, is here. Our Parks and Rec Director, Ernie Pages.
Present. Thank you.
Thank you. Our Finance Director, Franz Ader.
Present. Thank you.
Thank you. Our Community Development Director, Jeff Hatling.
Present. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Our Human Resources Director, Crystal Tanner.
She is in the courtroom.
Thank you. Our Inspector, Herman Hofter.
I am present. Thank you.
Welcome. And Mr. Swisher, are there any other town staff who are part of this call that I need to recognize at this time?
I don't remember whether you recognized him, but our Public Services Director, Dorn Maltba, is also present.
I did not. Our Public Services Director, Dorn Maltba. There you are. Thank you. All right.
Mayor
Mike Horn is
Yes.
also on.
Development Services Director is also on.
Okay, I've got Community Development Director Jeff Hatling here. So we've got also from Community Development, Mike Horney.
Correct.
Yes, ma'am. I'm here.
All right. Anybody else?
I think that's it.
All right, perfect. I'd like to again welcome you to the meeting, and we'll begin with an invocation by Pastor David Miller of Triad Church of Christ. Thank you, Pastor Miller, for joining us this evening and leading our invocation.
Thank you, Mayor. It's my privilege. Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and for all your many wonderful blessings. God, we thank you for this opportunity to conduct business as a town. And I pray, Lord, at this time that you might bless the participants tonight. I pray, God, that everything that they say and do might be positive and constructive in such a way as to further the better good of this community. Father, we're thankful for all those here that are present tonight to present new business before the council. And we pray, God, that a spirit of understanding and a spirit of wisdom might prevail tonight. And we pray, Father, that the town might act as usual in the best interests of the community. Lord, we pray that you would continue to be with us and bless us this evening. Be with those that are sick and afflicted, those, Father, that are unable to attend tonight, and continue with them. Lord, we thank you for all your blessings, and we pray your blessings on these proceedings tonight. For it's in the wonderful name of Christ Jesus we pray, and amen.
Thank you. We appreciate you joining us, and thank you for all the work you and your congregation do in our community. All right, at this point in time, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
You may be seated. It is my honor to welcome to our meeting tonight the Sheriff of Forsyth County, Sheriff Bobby Kimbrough. Sheriff Kimbrough, we appreciate your work and the work of your deputies in keeping Forsyth County safe, as well as the close working relationship that you have with the Kernersville Police Department. And thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come speak with us and to be at our meeting tonight. I'll now turn the meeting over to you, Sheriff Bobby Kimbrough.
Mayor, I really appreciate the warm welcome. I want to thank you as well as the board members for allowing me to be present. Also, I have to always give thanks to God for what he's doing in my life and how he is blessing me and guiding me. I just want to take a minute or two and share with you the things that we're doing at your sheriff's office, the office of the people. You know, I've been amazed at the energy that we've been able to gather as a community working with Kernersville Police Department. I was out there last week talking to Chief Summers 2 weeks ago about a situation that we thought we were going to need resources. He didn't hesitate to share with me things that he had that we could, and he said that we could have them if we needed it. And I left there saying to myself, wow, he was willing to share his resources and give us his resources so that we could have. And so I've just been amazed and blessed to see the working relationships throughout this community. Since we've come into office 2 years ago, what we have done is try to build what we call community credibility in the community, having the community believe in what we're doing. And we felt to do that, we needed to have partnerships with all parts of this county, not just one particular area, but all parts of it. And that's what we have set out to do. One of the things that you may or may not know is that we have partnered with Kernersville Police Department, Winston Police Department, as well as the federal alphabet agencies, and have created a space out in Kernersville, about 70 police officers from the various agencies and federal agents to combat the drugs and the violence throughout the county. And again, I thank Chief Summers for being a part of that. We have began creating what we call the Arctic Real-Time Intelligence Center. And basically what that is, we have partnered with Fuchsia's and the Ring Center and all of the alarm systems around the country, around this area. And basically what that means is that in the next coming days, you will be able to register, upload your app, upload the app to your system to allow us to view the exterior, anything you want us to see. So for an example, if you have a camera that shoots toward the street, it will allow us to see someone coming up to your house in real-time intelligence. We have partnered with Mr. Bennett of Quality Oil and put cameras throughout Quality Oil as well as Four Brothers gas stations. We are partnered with real estate companies, putting them throughout the communities in apartment complexes. And we're grateful to be a part of that. We're grateful to start and to initiate what we refer to as 21st century law enforcement, to be proactive, not reactive. What we're trying to do is to deter anyone from wanting to do something, knowing the resources that are there. And we've done that through the partnerships. We've done that through your tax dollars. We've done that through you giving us the provisions, you believing in us. And I'm humbled to be sitting here. I'm humbled that you allowed me to be a part of this meeting, because I've always said that one person is just an individual, but together we're unstoppable. We're an unstoppable movement. And what I see happening across this community, I'll go back to a situation that is sore to most of us, and I still think about it. I go back to the Neville situation. the situation we had in the detention center. And when I think about that, how while there may have been an exchange of words, emotions might have gotten high, but we were still able to sit at the table as a community and talk. We didn't have a broken window in our community. We didn't have a fire not set. We didn't have anyone painting graffiti or any of those things. And it's because of the people in this community have believed and are believing in your leadership, Mayor Morgan. They're believing in the leadership that is present throughout the various townships. And I say that because when people see people working together and that divisive line is being erased, it is a powerful thing. And that's where the synergy starts to take place and the difference. I could go on telling you about the things that we're doing, innovations that we're doing here in the sheriff's office, but I won't take up your time with that. What I wanted to leave you with is that today I was out in the community and I got a call to come to Forsyth Court out off Renault Road. And when I got out there, they wanted me to identify my uncle who lives there who had passed about 11:30. And when I was in the room and just saying my last goodbyes to him about 11:30 today, I realized how important life is. But what was so important to me, and it touched me, and it actually made me cry when I left, an older white woman came up to me. And what she said to me is, she said, Sheriff Kimbrough, she said, I just want you to know that I didn't even believe in you. She said, but I've seen what you're doing in this community. Keep doing what you're doing because you're bringing people together. This woman was 90 years old and said that to me today. I walked out of the building. I'm sure tears were a combination of my uncle passing and tears of what she said. And so I want you to know that with people like you all leading the way, people like you all standing up for what's right, not what is democratic, not what is republic, not what is independent, not what is black, not what is white, but what is right. And that's why I believe that we didn't have not one fire set in this community. I believe that's why we didn't have not one window broken. It's because even though we may have our differences, all of us are different, but we're able to come together and sit and talk and have dialogue. And I want you to know that I'm appreciative that you have included me in that process. And I can't say enough about your police chief. I love the man. Even before I came into office, he was supportive. The relationship that we had with Kernersville is amazing now. Every time I go over there to your office or even to the new site where we have everybody located at, it's amazing to see offices from different parts of the county working together, different men in law enforcement coming together. And I just hope we can keep that synergy going. And I thank you for your time, and may God continue to smile upon all of you, because I think that we're leading the way. I get calls from all over the country asking, what are you all doing there? And you know what I say? It's the people, it's the leadership, because we can agree and disagree. We can walk away with a certain level of class, and we can walk away with a certain level of love. And so I want us to keep that. And I want you, Mayor, to know how much I appreciate your leadership and what you're doing. And so if you all ever need anything from your office of the people, I'm here, we're here, and thank you for this time.
Thank you, Sheriff Kimbrough. We send our condolences and our prayers to you and your family for your loss. And again, we appreciate the strong working relationship that you have with the town of Kernersville, the Kernersville Police Department, and all of the jurisdictions in Forsyth County. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we are now to our regular agenda. Tonight we have a public hearing. If you attend the meetings regularly, you have heard the procedure for a public hearing many times, but in case you're new to our public hearings with a remote format meeting, I'll briefly review them. It is printed on the agenda. If you went to the town website and have looked at the agenda, it is printed on the first and second pages of the agenda. But when an agenda item is denoted as public hearing, Persons attending shall be permitted to address the Board of Aldermen regarding the item under consideration. Those speaking in favor, speaking first, and those against, speaking second. Proponents and opponents shall each be given 20 minutes of time to speak and may choose to allow one speaker to utilize that time or choose to allocate the time among different speakers. In the event that either proponents or opponents have not designated a speaker or speakers to represent that view, the mayor will divide the 20 minutes by the number of speakers wishing to address the Board of Aldermen, and each speaker shall be allowed that given time within which to express his or her comments, ideas, concerns, expressions, and desires. After the opponents speak, the mayor will allow the proponents 5 minutes for rebuttal. If the proponents choose to exercise this option, the opponents will also have 5 minutes for rebuttal. In the event that the proponents do not present a rebuttal, then the opponents shall be given no further time to speak. During this meeting, persons wishing to speak to the board on an agenda item, including public comments on a public hearing, can call 336-996-7289. That's 336-996-7289, beginning 30 minutes prior to the meeting. Callers will be recognized in the order they are received and will be transferred into the meeting when it is their turn to speak. Persons may also attend at the courtroom at Town Hall. Persons wishing to send written comments or agenda items other than the public hearing items needed to have submitted them prior to this meeting. But if you'd like to send a written comment on the public hearing item, you can email them to Keith Hooker, our town clerk, at khooker@toknc.com. That's khooker@toknc.com, no later than 24 hours after the public hearing or meetings for remote attendance by board members. So you can call in tonight. You can come to the courtroom at Town Hall tonight, or you may send written comments within 24 hours after the conclusion of the public hearing tonight, if you would like to comment and have your comments be made part of the record. Some citizens have already submitted their comments in advance of that meeting, and they've been added to our website under this agenda item by our town clerk. All right, at this time, are there any questions about the procedure for the meeting? The second thing to know about the meeting is we will not vote on the public hearing, the rezoning, this evening. We'll vote at that later this week. At the conclusion of the public hearing, we'll continue the zoning item to another day for the purposes of taking a vote. All right, so we are to item 1A. It is a public hearing on rezoning presented by Ray Thomas, attorney for owners. Petitioner requesting a 1- and 2-phase special use district rezoning from RS20 and HBS to LBS, limited business special use district, for properties located at 1020 North Main Street, containing a total of 13.03 plus or minus acres, and being 2 separate phases, with the PIN numbers and proposed uses that are listed on the agenda and included in the staff's report. This is filed under zoning docket K784. So it is the public hearing and the consideration of an ordinance rezoning said property. We'll begin with a presentation by our Community Development Director, Mr. Jeff Hadley.
Thank you, Mayor Morgan. I have my screen shared for the presentation. As described by the mayor, this is a rezoning from RS20 and HBS to limited business special use. This is a single phase and 2-phase, meaning there's a specific site plan for a portion of it. These 2-phase means that if approved, the rezoning is approved, they would come back to the planning board with specific site plans, meeting the conditions of the original rezoning and approved uses. The site plan for the single phase is on 9.44 acres. It's for a grocery store of 35,929 square feet with 181 parking spaces. The second phase has 3 separate out parcels of 0.87 acres, 1.47 acres, and 1.25 acres. Regarding the land use plan, in 2017, the town of Kernersville completed a study and plan for the area that would be impacted by the Macy Grove Road extension from Salem Parkway, Business 40, to North Main Street. Kernersville Development Plan, land use plan for the parcel along North Main Street, north of Smith Edwards Road, Macy Grove extension to County Line Road was changed from low density residential to commercial neighborhood. The adopted plan for the commercial neighborhood states, commercial neighborhood shall consist of small-scale commercial services with a maximum retail store space being 20,000 square feet or less, and also office uses. The current proposed rezoning would not conform to the land use plan based upon the following facts. The proposed building size, the single-phase rezoning proposes a 35,929 square foot grocery store. Kernersville Development Plan calls for small-scale commercial services with a maximum retail size being 20,000 square feet or less. The purpose of this small-scale commercial is to prevent deterioration and blighted conditions of the existing North Main Street commercial area. Kernersville has had a successful record in concentrating commercial into pockets, which has assisted in preventing vacant storefronts. The abandonment of the Piney Grove Lowe's food store is one example of the town not achieving the goal of preventing vacancies. At the time of the South Main Street Lowe's food grocery store rezoning, staff was informed Lowe's would be renovating the Piney Grove and the Walkertown Lowe's food stores. Staff would not have recommended rezoning approval of the South Main Street Lowe's with the knowledge that Lowe's would abandon the Piney Grove store. It should also be pointed out the old Rite Aid still remains vacant. If the proposed grocery store and commercial out parcels are approved, it would adversely impact the existing North Main Street commercial area by promoting additional vacancies, making it more difficult to lease existing vacant spaces. The land use plan calls for promoting orderly growth, which requires consideration of the entire area, not just individual locations. Commercial grocery stores are typically anchors for the commercial centers. Commercial centers without anchors have a difficult time attracting other commercial uses. Over time, the lack of occupancy and maintenance results in blighted conditions and economic decline for the area. The abandoned Lowe's grocery store is an example of that described condition. Staff is currently working to address graffiti and deterioration of the Piney Grove Lowe's building. Winston-Salem examples of what could happen to North Main Street if Kernersville land use plan is not followed. Here are some examples. Peters Creek Parkway, commercial area between Business 40 and I-40 jumps south of I-40. Northside and Patterson Avenue commercial jump to University Avenue. Watttown commercial jump to Silas Creek Parkway. These are all examples of commercial areas leaving older areas to be abandoned or deteriorating or less desirable than some of these newer locations. Another concern is moving North Main Street commercial uses to the edge of town would also threaten the proposed business park area on the west side of North Main Street. Here's a map of the land use plan changes we did for the Macy Grove North Main Street area. To the right in red is the area we're looking at tonight. Across the street is the blue area, which is a proposed business park, light industrial complex with potential offices. Winston-Salem example is Hames Boulevard. It was originally planned as a business park area, but the approved retail was then just took over Hames Boulevard. Staff is also concerned about future commercial actions also hampering our business park expansions. The planning board called for a workshop and study during the rezoning. During the planning board deliberation of the rezoning case K784, the planning board delayed action on the rezoning case until they could study the current land use plan. In the study that staff prepared for the planning board, it was noted once again the maximum retail store size of 20,000 square feet or less is directly related to the implementation of a primary purpose of the town's land use plan, which is to provide orderly growth. The land use plan description for commercial specifically says existing commercial areas need to be protected to prevent blight, but also to have the property owners and investors understand and trust that their investments will be protected. This type of trust can stimulate a greater amount of investment than haphazard commercial development. Further in the study, it stated commercial uses prefer to locate adjacent to each other in an attempt to capture a portion of the consumer business generated from other commercial uses. Commercial development trends in this country, as pointed out also in Winston-Salem, have been a transition from downtown to plazas on the edge of downtown to shopping centers on the outskirts of the community. That leapfrogging development pattern can cause the older commercial areas to decline. Kernersville, in the land use plan states, Kernersville will undertake specific actions to address negative impacts of establishing new commercial areas and promote existing areas. Additionally, the North Main Street area and commercial areas around NC 66 Business 40 currently have numerous commercial lots that are not developed and several vacancies in existing plazas. These need to be reduced prior to commercial rezoning of other properties. Existing commercial areas need to be protected to prevent blight, but also have the property owner and investors understand the trust that their investment will be protected. This type of trust can stimulate greater amount of investment than haphazard commercial development, as stated earlier. So the study in summary, as described above and within the land use plan, the town's land use plan emphasizes orderly commercial development, protect the existing commercial areas, prevent blight, and provide convenience to residents. On these two photos to the right, along Bodenhammer Street on the edge of this North Main Street area, Hedgecock Lumber was hit by graffiti. They recently covered up. And across the street, of course, these are just conditions that we would like to see improved upon by additional new investments. However, if we abandon the existing commercial area in North Main Street, these type of properties will have a difficult time to reinvent themselves to attract reinvestments. But the town of Kernersville, following this land use plan, has been able to build trust with existing property owners, investors, and encourage additional investments. Recommendations, the planning board recommended 6-3 and the staff recommended denial with the following motion. Move to deny the request to amend the Unified Development Ordinance of the town by rezoning property in case K784 from RS20 and HBS to LBS. The said rezoning being inconsistent with the town's comprehensive plan, the Kernersville Development Plan, and further being both not reasonable nor in the public interest due to the following facts. Proposal is not in conformance with the town of Kernersville Development Plan's land use plan, which calls for this commercial neighborhood to be small-scale commercial services with a maximum retail store size being 20,000 square feet or less in offices. The proposed site plan does not meet the commercial neighborhood development design standards, create a village setting with buildings fronting the primary streets. Kernersville Development Plan land use plan calls for promoting orderly growth, which requires consideration of the entire area, not just individual locations. If the proposed grocery store and commercial outparcels are approved, it would adversely impact the existing North Main Street commercial area by promoting additional vacancies, blight, and making it more difficult to lease existing vacant spaces. Regarding the site plan, if the rezoning approved, the conditions as presented in the planning board report. So Mayor, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Hatling. All right, this is a meeting with a public hearing. I have, I think, Ray Thomas speaking in favor. Mr. Dillon, is Mr. Dillon here in favor of the proposal?
Yes.
Okay. And who else in the courtroom is here to speak in favor of the proposal?
Just
Mr.
Mr.
Swisher?
Dillon, I believe. It's just
Okay.
Mr. Dillon.
Okay, and then Mr. Thomas, who's here speaking in favor of the proposal
Besides myself, the developer, Magnolia One LLC, but representing them is Joe Gentry. He's on the TV, it looks like, and two individuals from Food Line, Jeff Smith and Steve Wilson. They're here to answer any questions that the board might have of them. The situation.
Hang on, Mr. Thomas. So everyone involved in the Food Lion case, this public hearing, zoning docket K784, feel free to turn on your cameras. If you would mute your mics until it is your opportunity to speak. So, Mateus, do we have anyone who's called in to speak on this public hearing?
Madam Mayor, Dave Southard is on the line as well to speak to this agenda item.
All right, and Dave Southard speaking against. Is there anyone else who's called in to speak either for or against? Is there anyone, Mr. Swisher, in the courtroom who's here to speak for or against that we've not included yet?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Thomas, have you and Mr. Dillon talked in advance of this meeting? Are your remarks together or separate?
Well, we'll be separate. I will try to review this quickly, so I'll give him plenty of time to speak. And then
okay, hang on a minute. Mr. Dillon, are you okay with that?
He said yes.
He doesn't have a mic. He says yes.
All right, perfect. All right, Mr. Thomas, we do have a time limit for the totality of comments in favor of 20 minutes. Alderman Boyer is the timekeeper. So when you are ready, if you could restate your name and your address for the records of our town clerk, Keith Hooker, and other speakers, if you could state your name and your address as you begin to speak, and it can be, of course, your business address.
Okay.
Individuals who are citizens calling in, you do not need to state your home address, certainly. You can just give that to Mr. Hooker at another time.
My name is Raymond D. Thomas, 116C South Cherry Street, Kernersville, North Carolina. One comment before we start. There has been reference both in the notice and in your ordinance, proposed ordinance that was attached to your agenda. This property total is 9.44 acres. It's been referred to as 13 acres. It is not. It is 9.44, and that is including both the phase 1 and the phase 2. The phase 1, which seems to have brought more interest than any other, I'll call it the grocery store tract, is 5.8 acres. And then the other 3 out parcels, which is phase 2, is as stated, but it totals 3.59 acres. So I don't know how this got to be confusing, because when it was filed, the petitions had the appropriate or correct acreage based on the records of the Forsyth County Tax Office. First of all, comparison to the city of Winston-Salem in areas that are highly populated has, in my opinion, no bearing on this particular petition. This is an extraterritorial jurisdiction petition, and one of the conditions is the filing of an annexation petition, which is normal in these types of cases. But the individuals in this area, for the most part, probably are not residents of the town. But it is right now one of the things I think you can consider, although it's difficult to tell for sure, but Kernersville at this point receives no tax revenue from this property. I did a quick estimate just on the food line based on present day rate of 57 cents per 100. And it is estimated, and it's, of course, the valuation is determined by the Forsyth County Tax Office. But if we use 7 million for that one tract, one site, which is the 5.8, that would have income or tax of around $40,000 a year. Of course, we don't know what rate Kernersville will have at the time, but anyway, based on today's rate and possible tax value. One of the things in trying to see what to do with this property, and quite frankly, I think your decision is I don't know that it's simple, but it's pretty direct. If the 5.8 acres is suitable for a grocery store, then that's what you should do. If it's not, then you keep what you've got. So the first difference is the square footage between 20,000 square feet and approximately 35,000 to 36,000 square feet. That's the size of the grocery store. And on the 5.8 acres, that's all that's located on that property except for parking. Across the street, rezoned in 2007, is a 5.8 acre tract. It is, if you will, the site plan shows it to be, I guess, what you call a village setting. Since 2007, nothing has happened to that property. And the commercial neighborhood conditions for the property that you have before you is the same conditions for that property, and nothing has happened. I think that is something that needs to be considered. I would also say to you that if the grocery store site is approved, it could very well be in part an anchor for that other parcel. Mr. Hatling is correct. You need an anchor. And with the proximities of these two properties, that could very well happen. One of the things that I determined was the Macy Grove extension. That running from North Main to Piney Grove Road will have no access. This comes from the DOT. So a lot of what's on your land use plan, you may have to turn around and redo it, because you're going to have access to particularly this area of business support. And then I did see in some of the discussion that even the property that the town owns could be used for recreational area. Well, I'm not sure that'll be up to the town how you're going to get to it, because you're not going to get to go off of Macy Grove Road extension as I understand it. One of the things, though, with that road when built, and they're under construction now. I went by there today and bulldozers are pushing dirt. So I don't know how long they plan to take to get it done, but it won't be long. But that would be a direct access for people on Piney Grove Road, Linville Springs Road, even as far as Dobson Street, as access, direct access to this location, which makes it a whole lot better. And it's interesting that in many cases in which I've been involved, traffic and requirements of the DOT are always involved. In this one, the controlled or the stoplights are in place, operational, both at Macy Grove and North Main, and also at County Line Road and North Main. So that's not an issue anymore. It's in place. I think that the idea of the commercial neighborhood, there are several designations. All of them are somewhat different as to square footage because of their size. But I noted that the mega Walmart grocery store, which has around 42,000 square feet on about 6.29 acres, is designated on the land use plan as commercial neighborhood. Now, it doesn't have the same conditions that the subject property has, but in time, our property may service just as many houses and residents as that one does. So I think there is some similarity between those two centers. And they both do the same thing. They're grocery stores. In looking at this site, they talk about the village setting. Well, based on the site plan, just for the grocery store, it fronts. And it is my opinion that in this particular area, a village setting is not really conducive to a good, viable business. I know many places that's what they'd like to do, but at the same time, a grocery store is going to be more essential than a lot of other kind of businesses because we all got to eat. And that's what they do. They sell food. So it's pretty essential. And one of the things I think we have to consider also is COVID. I think things are better, but it's still here. And the way people do things and shop is changing and changing fast. I just thought about across the street, you have business support. I think that's going to have to be changed because offices and so forth, a lot of companies all their employees are working at home. And I don't know when things loosen up to allow us more freedom of movement, I don't know that that's going to change a lot. Moving to this idea of blight, and I don't know what blight is, and I've ridden around the neighborhood where the old Lowe's is and where Rite Aid is, and I look at all those businesses that are there, and I didn't see many vacancies. It's a changing area. And the situation with the Rite Aid and the Lowe's is not because the owner has a problem. The owner is being paid. They're getting their rent. It's the tenant. And the tenant is dictating whatever it is they want to dictate. I assume Lowe's wants no competition. Well, that's not the kind of business that Food Line is in. They're looking to upgrade. They've been in this town over 30 years. They've been in that store close to that time. And what they want to do is they want to upgrade different, and things change. And this gives them that opportunity, not only upgrade, but also the location and the area that it opens up is a whole lot different than what it is today. So I would tell you, and as I'd sent a letter to all of you concerning that part of it, of the blight. I got the idea from the planning board. Just as an example, if we had a grocery store, I'm going to say, I'm just going to use this as an example, Publix. If it were Publix that was coming in and wanted to go to this site, I got a feeling we might have gotten a different results, or we might have had more people pushing the idea of a grocery store.
Mr. Thomas, may I stop you there? Mr. Boyer, if you could pause the time, if you could tell us what time we're at as far as the countdown for this public hearing.
Yeah, Mr. Thomas has used 11 minutes and 33 seconds.
Okay.
Mr. Thomas, is it time to give Mr. Dillon the floor?
I'll be glad to do that. If there's any questions of myself or the other individuals, just let us know. Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor, Mr. Dillon said he would yield his time to Ray if Ray would like to keep going.
Okay. So noted. Mr. Thomas, proceed. And if you would like to work the food line representatives into it, just hand the time to them.
Okay.
And then Bruce will call time. He'll give you a 1 minute warning before it's time to end.
Well, the developer, Joe Gentry, is here. And if he's got any remarks or you've got any questions of him, he's available.
We'll save all our questions.
Joe, turn on your microphone. There you go.
Joe Gentry. Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Alderman, we are honored to appreciate the ability to be here, and you're taking the time to help us with this matter. The only thing that I would add to what Ray's saying, I think his summation, and I'd like for him to be able to finish it, so I'll be quick, is that Food Lion has been in the Kernersville community since 1970. Jeff Smith, who is the director of real estate, can address that, and he did in a little study that he did of the history of Food Lion in Kernersville, and I think y'all have all received a copy of it, and that shows that, I believe, exhibits the good neighbor ability and willingness that Food Lion has to blend into the needs of the community. So I'll stand by for any questions, and I'll go ahead and mute now if I can do this without cutting me off.
All right, Mr. Thomas, is there anything from Mr. Smith or anything further? Or Mr. Wilson?
I would make this comment. It seems to me, and I have a lot of respect for Jeff Hatling and his staff, you go through the EBO, and that is really something. And he's protected the town. However, on this one, he is saying to us that an owner of a shopping center, an owner of a building, doesn't have the ability to rent his own property when there's a vacancy. This town is full of rental property, both residential and commercial. And on a basis, you just look, you don't find that many vacant stores. It all started when Lowe's said, we want to go to the south side of town. And then they kept the store on the north side of town empty. So I'm assuming that they have some reason maybe to keep out competition. I don't know the reason. But in my opinion, Kernersville needs to be careful when you start dealing with somebody's desires in a business transaction to do whatever they do. Sooner or later, that building will be rented. But that's between other parties right now. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Bruce, how much time do we have left in favor?
They have used only 14 minutes and 10 seconds, so about 5 minutes or so left, a little bit more than 5 minutes.
They've used 14.
14:10 so far used.
Okay. All right. Is there anything further in favor at this time?
Yes,
All right.
ma'am. Mr. Dillon would like to use the 5 minutes
Okay.
if it's left.
All right, Mr. Dillon. Welcome. We have a podium set up in the courtroom, so to avoid all the echoes that you've heard, though, Mr. Dillon is putting a headset on. And his microphone is muted.
To the mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, the Board of Aldermen, thank you for considering my comments. My name is Danny Dillon, and I live in Kernersville. As you are aware, the planning board is recommending that you deny the request for a new food line. However, the board was not unanimous in that decision. The vote was 6-3, so there was some support for the new food line. Although it was not intentional or planned when the town of Kernersville approved the new food line on South Main, the result of that action was the closing of the Lowe's on North Main. That left the old food line to serve the citizens on the north side of Kernersville. I've mentioned before that the south side has 5 grocery stores compared to now 1 on the north side. The planning board has argued that the old Rite Aid building and the old Lowe's building will remain vacant and create an area of blight if you approve the new food line. Both of these properties continue to be leased to keep out competition, is what I've heard. The taxes and leases on these buildings are being paid, and the town has no control over those decisions. The buildings will be occupied when the owners and the lessees make them available. To deny the request for the food line is to allow private commercial entities, rather than our local government, to control development on the north side of town. It seems that the issue tonight is that we have 2 competing needs. The planning board has a need to fill 2 empty buildings versus the citizens on the north side of town having a need for a new, improved grocery store. With the new Macy Grove Road extension, I think it is wise to look at improvements on the north side of Kernersville. Having said that, I appeal to you to respond to the needs of the citizens and approve the zoning petition. I might add, Food Line has been a long-standing business in our community, serving our people beginning when it was Food Town in the 70s, and I think they deserve to be able to improve their service. In closing, I want to thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Dillon. Bruce, what are we at as to time left?
16 minutes, 19 seconds used.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in favor? I see from Mateus that no one else has called in to speak in favor. And just to confirm with Mr. Swisher, has anyone entered the courtroom since this public hearing began who would like to speak in favor?
No, ma'am.
All right. There are a few minutes remaining if there are any more comments in favor. Seeing none, we'll move on to persons desiring to speak against. We have calling in Dave Southard and Randall Reibler. Is there anyone in the courtroom who'd like to speak against?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Mateus, I will first recognize Dave Southard. Dave, if you could again repeat your name when you are connected.
Okay, can everybody hear me? This is Dave Southard.
Yes, we can.
I'm at 9475 County Line Road. And I want to say that my comments may be a little bit scattered because this is a bit personal to me and the neighbors out here, and this is not rehearsed or I don't have any experience doing this. I want to thank everybody for letting us speak, and I hope everybody's doing well. I want to start off with one of the comments that Ray Thomas had made about the ETJ area and that we don't pay taxes out here. Although the neighbors out here don't pay taxes and we might not be in the city limits, our voices certainly need to be heard and our voices certainly matter out here. Something like this will have a direct impact on us. I mean, I live literally a couple doors down from where this is proposed. And my bedroom, when you look out the window of my bedroom, I will be looking at the back of a building and a parking lot. That's not what I want to see. And that's not what I moved out to this area for. The other neighbors out here are the same, feel the same way. I have literally spent 3 Saturdays in a row going door to door and talking to folks around here. I have been up and down County Line Road, Deborah Lane, Watmead. I've been through neighborhoods like Drummond Estates, Chelsea Place, Eden Bridge, just to name a few. So I have done some footwork on this. All the neighbors in here have the same opinion. They all moved out here because they wanted an area that was more rural and more country. And they want it to stay that way. They don't mind some development. That's okay. But, you know, most of these folks out here know what's here and know what fits in this area. And big box stores and big retail areas right back up or right up against the back of neighborhoods just does not work. It needs to be more transitional. You need to go from a low density to a medium density to a higher density. You can't just go from a high density area straight into low density. It just does not work. This just does not fit this area. And we don't care. We don't care if it was a Publix. We don't care if it was a Food Lion or Lowe's Foods. Just the whole scale of it just does not fit. And there needs to be more balance too. I mean, there's more to Kernersville than just businesses. And all I've heard on this whole thing tonight is it's all business, business, business. There's a lot of people in Kernersville that make up the neighbors and the friends and the people that spend their money in the town of Kernersville. So we need both. We agree with Jeff that this just does not fit the commercial neighborhood area. And we want the neighborhood to stay kind of rural like it is, and we do not want this rezoning to go through. And that's pretty much my comments right now.
Thank you, Mr. Southard. Mr. Reibler?
Actually, I'm a female. My name is Randall.
Oh, my apologies. I have only your name to apply.
No, I know, and everybody does it. I've been getting it since I was like 5 years old, so it's good. I'm used to it by this point. But I also live right down the street. I live off County Line. I live on Deborah Lane, which is right by the baseball field. And I am completely against this. Food Lion is already right down the street. I don't need it any closer. I'm really close with my neighbors on Deborah Lane, and we're all in agreement on this, that we don't want any more commercial things close to us. We all moved out into this area, or we've lived in this area for a very long time. People older than I am that have lived here for a very long time. They've lived in this area for the country feel. of this area. And a lot of the comments made tonight are about expanding and these commercial areas and putting business out here. But we live out here because we don't want business out here. We moved away from business to be away from it. There are a type of people who don't want to be around that, and we would rather travel further into town to get to the business. And I really do also agree with the land use plan. And, you know, this whole thing about blight, everyone keeps bringing up, you know, what does blight mean? I mean, just look it up in a dictionary, or what Jeff Hatling put the pictures up of the graffiti. If you put another giant building right next to Lowe's Foods, the old Lowe's Foods, where now Food Lion is, I mean, it is just going to become just this vacant area where people are just going to be throwing beer bottles and putting graffiti up everywhere. And we don't want that in Kernersville. I mean, I've lived here now for about 8 or 9 years, and I've seen downtown grow into this amazing, really cute downtown area. And if we didn't have a plan for that, it wouldn't have happened. And I am, you know, this land is going to be here. It's going to be here for when I think the time is appropriate for these things to start spreading out. I just don't think it's time yet. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rabler. All right. Is there anyone else to speak against? Okay. At this time, Dave Southard still seems to be on the call. Randall Reibler has left. Food Line representatives, Mr. Thomas is still here. Our staff is here. At this point in time, do any of the board members have any questions or comments? I'll begin with Mayor Pro Tem Fulton.
Thank you, Mayor Morgan. I have a couple questions. I'll start with Mr. Hatling, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Okay, Mr. Hatling, we had discussed about the land use plan, and I called you earlier today, and just to get everybody up on the same page, I called to ask you if the current Lowe's Foods met the land use plan or did it conform, and you let me know it did. So what this has done is raised another question for me. So when was the Lowe's Foods approved? And just answer that one first, which is going to lead me to another question.
What year?
Yes, sir.
I would have to look that up.
Okay, just you got a ballpark new shopping center? I'm thinking it's been there at least over 5 years now. Is that not? Am I wrong? Right?
Yeah, I would say about 5 years ago it was.
So that'd be around 2016, 2015, maybe.
I'd have to look it up for the specifics.
Okay, well, where I'm headed with this. Go ahead. Anybody else know? Yes,
Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, that rezoning was approved in August of 2015.
2015. Okay, so that leads me to my next question. When you and I spoke today, the land use plan was amended in 2017. So was part of that amendment geared towards avoiding what just happened with the Lowe's Foods and reducing that square footage to 20,000 square feet versus a 40,000 square foot out at Macy Grove? And also, was it amended because we weren't sure when Macy Grove was going to be actually completed and that extension? So I know that today you told me that land use plan was actually amended in 2017. So that tells me that was after the new shopping center over on South Main. So I just want to know if that's why we did that.
So we undertook a study at the intersection of the Macy Grove extension and North Main Street in anticipation of the extension opening up and some potential land use changes due to the traffic changes. The staff followed a similar land use plan scenario that we used in Beeson Crossroads and Smith Crossing. Beeson Crossing was identified as a neighborhood shopping center for a grocery store. When Smith Crossing came in, they also wanted a grocery store site. However, staff, the planning board, Board of Aldermen did not grant them a grocery store site. We wanted to make sure we protected the food lion at the Union Cross Shopping Center. And also we wanted to promote the Beeson Crossroads site as a grocery store site. We felt that the Beeson Crossroad was a more central location to the residents. And once again, the Smith Crossing, we felt that the Union Cross station where the food line is, we needed to protect that to enhance that center. And of course, now that Smith Crossing is building out, we're seeing some enhancements to the Union Cross Station Food Line Shopping Center.
Okay, when we're talking about Beeson, are we talking about the neighborhood Walmart store that was put over on that side?
Correct.
Okay, but we did not allow one right there at Smith Crossing, but now we have the Cracker Barrel and the new, I guess, gas station going in over there.
Correct. It was that interchange area was that's in the city of Winston side. Our land use plan is similar for that area. It's basically some neighborhood services, office services, and also some interstate services, like a Cracker Barrel.
Okay. Also, Mr. Thomas had brought up that the actual acreage for phase one, or the total, is 9.44, but I'm looking at what we have, or what came from the planning board, is 13.03. Can you tell me the difference for that 3.59 acres? Because that's a pretty big difference when you're talking about land. Which one's right?
That I would go with what Ray stated. I noticed on the site plan, those were the acreage Ray was quoting off the site plan, but staff can certainly look. But early on, there were some different acres that were offered and placed in different areas. But we'll go back and look at the specifics. But I would go with.
So does that make this public hearing kind of invalid? Mr. Wolf, I saw you shaking your head. When we have a discrepancy of that magnitude, because to me that's a big discrepancy, do we need to go back and change this?
No, ma'am. And I was not shaking my head, at least at the question. I may have been at something else. No, you are at a hearing and you take from it what you learn. And the staff has put forth an enlarged piece, but I understand it was petitioned for 9-point-something acres, and you will recall, as a jury would, you will recall what you recall, and you'll put it into place, and you'll decide whether it's 9-point-something or 13-point-something.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Mr. Hatling, I'm coming back to you. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
One thing on that, it should be noted that all the mapping, all the PIN numbers were all consistent. So all the advertising, all the mapping, all the PIN numbers were consistent. So somewhere along the line, there became 2 different acres. But like I said, to clarify, the legal ads with PIN numbers and the mapping were all the same.
Okay, because when I'm looking at PIN numbers, you were saying 2. If I'm reading this right, I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different PIN numbers.
I got to look at that specifically. I'll get back to you.
Okay, well, I'm just reading our agenda. It'll show you if you want a quick look at it. Also, so the current food line, can you tell me how large a store that is?
I do not have the specifics. My guess is in the low 40,000 range.
Mr. Thomas, or Mr. Smith with Food Line, would you be able to answer that question, please?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, that is just slightly over 37,000 square feet.
Okay, and your proposed, I was reading from Mr. Thomas's letter, was around 35,000. Is that correct?
It is just under 35,900.
But it's a new concept store, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Smith, for being here. I appreciate that. Mr. Hatland, I'm going to come back to you. I just have just a few more questions, Mayor, and I'll pass my time over. Going back to our original conversation that I started with the land use plan. So in 2015, and maybe you can get this to me before we come back, I would like to know what this property was actually zoned or what it could have been prior to us making that amendment in 2017. Because I just want to make sure that we didn't put in a restriction after Lowe's moved out and left Piney Grove vacant, just to, and I know why we would have, to prevent it and to protect our land. I get that. But I also know that, Lowe's has a lease that didn't come and due till 2024. And so that, granted, all taxes are paid and we appreciate people paying their taxes, but we don't appreciate the vacant buildings. And so I'm not in favor of vacant buildings, but I am in favor of bringing in new business and avoiding vacant buildings in town and on our outskirts. And I also believe that North Main deserves some attention. I think we're making a great investment with Civitan Park, and I think it's a wonderful way to look at those people in North Main that have kind of been left out. So with that, Mayor, that's all I have. Jeff, if you can get me that answer, I would greatly appreciate it.
I had that answer.
Oh, good. Go ahead.
So back in early 2000, the town undertook a land use plan change, which included reducing the amount of commercial space on North Main Street. I did some quotes tonight in my presentation, and I believe they're also in the agenda and also the North Main Street planning study. So in early 2000, we undertook the planning that recognized that North Main Street, I also pointed out the NC 66 area, needed to be protected from commercial growth creeping out to the outer edges of town, which we call deterioration. So to answer your question, Alderman Fulton, that language, that planning was undertaken well before 2015 or 2017.
Thank you, Mr. Howley. I agree. What I have in my hand is a full copy of the land use that was adopted on March 2nd of 2004, but it was last amended on June 26th of 2018. So there's no way I can go in this plan that I have in my hand to verify my question that I'm asking you, because it's all been amended, and that's the latest copy I can get. So if I can get that original question answered, I would appreciate it, please. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, do you want to restate your original question so everyone is on the same page?
Yes, ma'am. I'll be more than happy to. Mayor, what my question is we built a new shopping center in 2015, and then we went back and we amended our land use plan in 2017 that affected the Macy Grove extension. So I would like to know, I understand why we do amendments. I understand protecting our land, but I would like to know how that was originally set up back in 2015 before the amendment. And I do understand that we make a lot of amendments to our land use plan. And if we're going to do things, I would like to do it correctly, but I would also like to know the beginning and where it actually started. I hope that answers your question and I didn't confuse Mr. Hatley.
Mr. Hatley, did you get that question?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Mayor Morgan.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Thank you so much.
Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, do you have any other questions?
No, Mayor Morgan, thank you. Not at this time. I may have another one later.
Okay, fair enough. And it's the custom when we're not doing a remote meeting that we can ask a question of anyone who is still in the room. So I consider the room to be everyone here and everyone who spoke on the public hearing. So I want to let you know that Dave Southard and Randall Roebler are both still available if anyone has any questions they would like to ask them. All right, so let me also stay in order here. Alderman Kenny Cruz, do you have any questions you'd like to ask at this time? Would you like to ask any questions or make any comments? And we do need your microphone turned on. Thank you.
Okay. I don't have any questions, but I live next door to the food line. Been there 74 years. They were an excellent neighbor, and a lot of these people that worry about a business being next door, a business is the best neighbor you'll ever have. They're not there 24 hours a day. If you want to use their parking lot, you want to use their facility, you need more room, you have trouble in the community, you've got a place together. And North Main Street has been looked over a lot. We went on South Main and we're looking at a couple of empty stores. And I feel like occupying those stores belongs to us citizens, to the aldermen, and to our Chamber of Commerce. We work with the Chamber of Commerce to greet businesses, to bring businesses in, to bring needs to the community. And with all the years that I've lived, and if people state how long they've been there, I've been here 74 years, and I'm not planning on moving. So I love North Main Street, and we got a few auto parts, which has been helpful. My stepdaughter bought my brother-in-law's business with a Young's Florist, does a super business. I hated to see the old Adam Ellis burn, but I watched that burn. The day it was burning, I had a load of freight to go to Florida, but I climbed on top of my house and watched as that building was destroyed and burned down. But it's back. We've got activity there that's making employment. We've got some other buildings on down with machine shops and stuff that are vacant. We've got a lot of land that's readily available on North Main Street. And this new intersection with all the folks coming up county line, when you look how much safer it is with that stoplight, that large intersection for the ball traffic, for the working traffic, and you look to what traffic is going to be using Macy Grove Exchange, you haven't seen anything yet. That's going to bring traffic there. It's going to bring other people out with businesses and places that we want. The bowling alley there behind the shopping center, not active now, but that may be by the COVID or a lot of other problems that we have. But you look at all the land that's behind the food line store that's there now, that's in the back, that's not being used. There's acres of back parking where a truck just makes a circle, and I drove a truck for years and years. You didn't need all that, but they kept it up, and it was all there if anything happened that we needed. And I just want to say that I think Food Line has been a good neighbor to Kernersville, and I'd love to see them be able to up their facility and make a go of it and make life better for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny Cruz. All right, next, are there any questions or comments for Alderman Chris Thompson?
Just a couple. I'll be brief. I want to thank Jeff and staff for their thorough report. I'd also like to thank Food Line for continue showing interest in the town of Kernersville. Like I know, like they said, they've been here since the 70s as Food Town, but appreciate the fact that they're here and they're still wanting to be progressive about what they're doing and supply what they have to our citizens. So thank you. I guess question for Jeff. In your report, you got in here that the Lowe's Foods is an abandoned building, and I guess I'm ignorant as to what maybe the definition of total abandonment is. But I mean, if there's a lease on the building until 2024, it's not technically abandoned. I know it's not leased right now, and there seems like they're somewhat holding it hostage. But I don't know that the true definition of that would be abandoned. Any thoughts on that?
I think the Lowe's is similar to what we experienced on South Main Street. I came here in 97, and I think many people are familiar with South Main Street. Back in 97, had a lot of vacancies, abandoned. Either way, we can use the word vacant. But over time, through our land use planning, we were able to fill and attract and redevelop. And our current land use plan calls for the same on North Main Street. Eventually, Lowe's Grocery will give up that lease, and we'll make that available.
What's the square footage of that particular site, just the Lowe's shell itself?
I want to say around 40,000 square feet. Most of these grocery stores in Kernersville are in that 40,000 plus or minus range. Food Line, I think the only small food grocery store we have is the Food Line out on Union Cross. I think that's below 30,000, but they're all in about the 40,000 range. But I can get that information to you.
And that's fine. And I kind of figured that was probably about as what the square footage was, give or take. I guess my thoughts on that is that surely I know that's 3 years away, but that's going to be a decent sized facility for another, I guess, size grocery store of Food Line or Lowe's that could definitely lease that space. That's all I have, Mayor Morgan. The only thing I would add, Mayor Morgan, is that I know that typically the petitioner gets a rebuttal after those opposed have spoken. I don't know that we allowed Food Line to have a rebuttal on that. Just a thought.
All right, Alderman Penix.
Well, Mayor, could you answer Chris Thompson's question?
Sure, I was holding that till the end.
Okay.
I took it as, given that I had given them so many opportunities to make additional comments. Once Ray spoke and then Mr. Dillon spoke, that they didn't seek a rebuttal. So I apologize if that was an error, but Mr. Thomas, did you want a rebuttal?
I just had a couple of brief comments, but and I can do them when you finish with the alderman, or if you want me to do it now.
No, I do not believe I closed the public hearing, so the public hearing's still open. So rebuttal will be 5 minutes. Wait, hold on a minute. Mr. Tom, hold on a minute before you begin. Mr. Wolf, are you fine with that?
Yes, Mayor. Technically, it should have taken place after the two parties presented their evidence and so forth.
But everyone is still in the room.
If you
all the callers are still here, everybody's still here.
I think some of the aldermen have asked questions. At this point, if you want to allow the rest to ask their questions and then go to a rebuttal, that will be fine. I think it should, in fact, take place.
Okay, and would you recommend that I go ahead and ask Mr. Penix and Mr. Boyer their questions first?
Since you're into the alderman asking questions, I would suggest you go ahead and follow through with theirs. And then go back to the rebuttal. And of course, it is up to the plaintiff, the petitioner, if petitioner wishes for rebuttal. And Ray said he had a couple of things. Then he would go forth, and then, the folks who are in opposition would have an opportunity to go forth. And then I think you would come back to your alderman and ask if there were further questions after the rebuttal.
Certainly. Certainly, I would have done that. I was planning to do that actually. So I'm glad we're thinking alike on this. All right. Alderman Penix, at this time, do you have any questions or comments?
Madam Mayor, just a couple of comments. Of course, like Mr. Cruz, I've lived here all my life, and I've seen Food Line grow from Max Coltrane's M&M Grocery to Food Town, and then Food Line. Been here over 37 years, and I commend them for wanting to upgrade their facility. If you compare, and I think that Jeff Smith would agree with me, he would have no qualms agreeing with this statement. If you compare our existing Food Line with the other modern supermarkets in Kernersville that we have now, you could almost consider that Food Line on North Main a blight already. So I think the fact that they want to improve it is a good idea. I think the town of Kernersville, one of our main goals is to provide essential services to the citizens of Kernersville. And I think probably the most essential is food. And I think we haven't neglected that part of town. There's not been an opportunity to have a modern supermarket on that part of town. So I'm glad that Food Line is considering it. I think it would serve the citizens on the north end very well. I know that if I lived on the north end of town, I would hate to drive to Stokesdale or Oak Ridge to buy my groceries. So those are the only thoughts I have right now, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Boyer, do you have questions or comments at this time?
Yes, ma'am, I do. First, starting with Jeff, I watched all of the planning board meetings, the October meeting, their workshop in December, their January meeting. They voted to deny 6-3. We've heard that, and twice they were given the opportunity by Jim Waddell. Do you want to amend or change the land use plan? And there was no motion to do that. If by chance this particular rezoning were approved, then it would be an exception to our current land use plan. What then would happen to land use planning for this area should we approve this particular proposal?
The simplest process is the Board of Aldermen approves this rezoning. Staff would go back and draft a land use plan just to change that 20,000 square feet to a larger footprint. And so we just clean up the narrative and clean up the plan.
And would that, Jeff, would that be for this site only or for any site that is in this area?
Staff would recommend only this site.
Okay, thank you. Second question, pie in the sky, I guess. You know, we have seen bulldozers starting to do some moving of dirt on the loop road that goes from North Main Street towards Piney Grove. DOT's website said construction would start in June of 2020. What's the best guess of when that loop road might connect and be open?
Right now, NCDOT has pushed back, delayed some of the projects. They have pushed back this project. I'll have to go look specifically on the new dates, but I know right now the dates are kind of moving around a little bit. As you stated, I think you said starting construction in 2023.
2022 is what it says for a start date and is to be determined on the completion date.
So if they started in 2022, it would open probably sometime in 2025.
Okay. We've all received lots of emails from people that are either advocating for or against. One of the things that people have advocated for are saying is that they don't like driving to South Main to do their grocery shopping because of the congestion. Should there be a more modern store on North Main, would that have any impact on, because the traffic now could be more local, would that have any impact on South Main, or would people from the central part of Kernersville that might have shopped at the current Food Lion would now be going to the Lowe's? What do you think would happen traffic-wise?
Well, the current Food Lion would most likely see their customer base just shift to the Macy Grove North Main Street. So the consumer would, typically follow them to that next door. I live in Branchwood. I mean, you live up on Linville Springs. I shop at the Lowe's grocery store on South Main Street. I shop at the Food Lion on North Main Street. Just thinking as an average consumer, I would not see a lot of traffic pattern changes. Mm-hmm. We also, the other road improvements on the NCDOT is widening of Piney Grove Road from Nelson Street out to Brown Road. And so either location would have good, proper ingress and egress and good NCDOT roadway. So would not see a lot of consumer changes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Southern talked about his property being 2 doors away and didn't want to look at the back of the building with vehicles with tractor trailers being unloaded. I know there's time frames and the conditions of what time of day that could be, but I also noticed in the staff report that the elevation of this store is slightly higher than the residential. How much screening would there be visually from trucks that are unloading to the residential areas?
Staff drafted some specific conditions on that, and I'll forward that information to you. We were concerned, much like we were with the Beeson Crossroads rezoning, where the Walmart grocery store is, with residents right next door. I think the biggest thing is tractor trailer is the beeping sound. I mean, that's end of the day, the beeping sound, the lights. But yeah, we did draft some specific conditions of berms and opaque fencing and so forth to keep the light intrusion off. Also pedestrian scale lighting and downscale lighting on the building. So we did draft some specific conditions that the staff and planning board is recommending as conditions if the Board of Aldermen approves the rezoning.
Right. Yeah, I saw those. I just didn't know how effective they would be was my question. Last question I have is either for Mr. Thomas or the Food Line people, just to sort of give, the new proposed store is slightly smaller, 2,000 square feet smaller or whatever than the existing store, but we know it's a prototype, would be better laid out. What things would be additionally possible in the proposed new site that is not possible in the current site? What are we gaining is basically what I'm asking.
Yeah. So this is Jeff Smith. Alderman, I'd be glad to try to answer that. The retail business and the grocery business specifically is changing very quickly. One of the things that hampers us in existing locations is the infrastructure that's there regarding our fresh departments and those kind of things that have coolers and freezers and drains. So being able to lay something out is one issue. What we have done what I think is all we can do in the current location by adding the wing bar that was there and some other items. But in the new prototype, there's hand battered chicken. There's potential for, and I would assume we've not built a prototype yet without handmade sushi inside of the store as well. Expanded e-commerce, food line to go also works. And there are a number of other things that we are currently testing in lab and concept stores that I'd love to tell you about, but a number of things that are in keeping with what's happening in the industry right now related to COVID and even before that, but a number of things that go to what we refer to as home meal solutions. I don't know if anyone, any of the folks on the board have utilized something like a home chef or something like that. That's another current trend that I think most grocery stores are doing, and that becomes very hard to do when you're locked in with the current infrastructure in an existing store.
Okay, thank you. And I do shop at your current store, so I'm familiar with your store. Although my wife sends me for the quick items, she goes with the grocery cart. I go with a bag is all I need. But I am a shopper there. Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's my questions for now.
Okay, the public hearing is open. Mr. Thomas?
Yes, ma'am.
The proponents have spoken, the opponents have spoken. Would you like 5 minutes for rebuttal? If you choose to have a rebuttal, then the opponents have an additional time to speak. If you choose not to do a rebuttal, then the speaking at the public hearing would be over.
Yes, ma'am. Just briefly this.
And please feel free to turn your camera on.
Okay.
Or you can just speak. And Bruce, if you could time it. Thank you.
Okay. My only comment, and Mr. Southard and Ms. Reichel, they certainly expressed themselves well, and they both indicated they favored the land use plan. Well, I would note that the land use plan is business. If we came in with Dollar General or something of that nature that would normally have around 20,000 square feet, we wouldn't be having this issue. There would be business there. It may be limited, and it is limited as to uses because that's by its very nature limited business. But my only comment is that even the plan, Kernersville's plan, changed it from strictly a neighborhood to commercial neighborhood. So I would point out to the board that the question of whether a business is going there or not going there, the way it zones some type of business, be it 20,000 square feet or 15 or 10, whatever it might be, could, and if they had the proper uses, could go there and would probably receive approval for that purpose. But that was my only comment. Thank you.
All right, is that the entirety of the rebuttal?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Ms. Randall Bradler, would you like to speak?
Yes, very quickly. Just a few things. If it was a different grocery store wanting to come in a smaller scale, which was approved by the land use plan, I think that would be fine. The fact that the food line wants to actually move creates more problems than another grocery store coming in. Then there would be more options available, plus the fact that another building wouldn't be vacant. I mean, I guess that's it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And I no longer see David Southard on the call. So let me double check with Matthias.
Dave is no longer on the call, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Wolf, we've had the proponents, the opponents, a rebuttal, and an opportunity to counter the rebuttal. Should it be appropriate to close the public hearing at this time?
I think so, Mayor. Yes.
All right, thank you. I'll declare the public hearing closed. All right. Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, do you have any further questions or comments?
Madam Mayor, I just have a question for Mr. Hatling. Real quick. Sorry. Where are you, Jeff? Well, I don't see him, but I'll ask the question. There you are, Jeff. Thank you. Sewer and water going out 150. How far does that go? And I mean, is it going to be part of the Macy Grove extension, or is that something that we'll need to work on?
There is currently sewer that is run to First Christian Church entrance off County Line Road, and that's the top of that's about as long as that sewer can go. There is a rezoning case going in front of the planning board at its March meeting. It's advertised for the February meeting, but the developer asked for continuance. His property is located behind First Christian. It's a Pope property. Or now Amy's property. He's proposing to pump his sewer through a private main up through First Christian to that manhole. So pretty much sewer ends at this commercial site and behind First Christian. Across the street, that proposed business park area has sewer and water. So the future growth will really be more on the west side of North Main Street.
So, okay, thank you. But it'll also, will they run sewer and water down the Macy Grove extension going over to Linville Springs and to Piney Grove?
They will not run it down the the intersection of Macy Grove Extension and North Main Street. That's at the top of the ridge. And going east down Smith Edwards Road, Macy Grove does not have sewer service. Not until you get down to Triad Park. And so all that area does not have sewer. As you recall, we had that rezoning, we had that subdivision case a couple months ago, and they could not
with
get
the
sewer.
County, right?
Yeah, so pretty much everything east of this proposed rezoning does not have the ability to have public sewer access. I don't envision us being able to run sewer up through there because of topography and limited developable property. And the only project I know is this rezoning case coming in front of the planning board at their March meeting where he's going to pump up to an existing manhole.
Okay, well, the other reason I'm asking this question is with the extension and with our land zoned industrial, how is that going to affect if we can't get sewer to that piece of property?
What industrial property? I'm sorry?
The one that's going to go over to Linville Springs and over to Piney Grove.
That entire area between North Main Street and Piney Grove Road does have sewer.
Okay, well, that was what I was trying to make sure of. That's okay. I thought I didn't ask that question right.
So the area west of this site is served by sewer. East of the site is not.
Okay, thank you. And then I just want to make sure. So Lowe's the empty Lowe's building on Piney Grove, and I know we've said this, but again, I want to say it one more time. It has a lease on it until 2024, and that is decision made by Lowe's. The taxes are paid up. So it is an empty building, but it does have taxes paying and a lease through 2024, correct?
I don't know. I don't have access to their contract, so I cannot answer that.
Okay. Well, and I believe that's my understanding on the Rite Aid building as well. The pictures you showed in the planning board talking about the graffiti on the walls and one of those buildings right off of Bodenheimer, is that something that your department or that we need to get someone else involved in to go out there and, you know, make sure that we're avoiding that or trying to get those owners of those properties to paint or clean up? Because we were talking about blight, and I think if we have existing buildings, are we doing that now? Because you have pictures of it that we're not doing it. So I'm just curious.
Yeah, we typically on graffiti will contact a property owner if they're absentee landowners. Hedgecock Lumber was a good example of a local owner. He was tagged, but then went out and cleared it up. I hope the one on Bodenhammer Street will soon be painted over also. I know I've been working with them on a potential redevelopment there. But yes, we typically will contact the property owners. And we typically get good response unless there's an absentee landowner that we can't get a hold of, or that's where we have some difficulties.
Okay, well, and I mean, I was reading back through the report as we're doing all this, and it was just saying it would be difficult to fill these spaces, but I don't think you have a choice. You can't fill these spaces if they're leased until 2024. Is that correct? So, I mean, that's not your fault. The lease is, you know, a 10-year lease. You can't fill that spot, right?
Yes, it's my understanding the Rite Aid may be open for development now. But people have mentioned the Lowe's is still under a longer lease agreement.
Okay. Mr. Hatling, thank you so much for all your hard work on this. And Mayor Morgan, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, Alderman Cruz, do you have any more questions? Do you have any more comments at this time?
No, ma'am, not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Thompson, and thank you for pointing out the issue about the rebuttal. I do very much appreciate it. Do you have any questions or comments at this time?
I have no more questions. Thank you for handling that. I just would ask for a 10-minute recess before our public session. Thanks.
Absolutely. Mr. Penix?
No further questions. No, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Boyer?
I've asked all my questions. Thank you.
All right. Well, I do have a big question for everybody. When would you like to meet to vote on this? Because I think that the appropriate thing to do would be to, we've opened the public hearing, we've closed the public hearing, we've had our questions, time for comments. I think the thing to do would be to continue this agenda item to a future meeting. So I think that Bruce and Chris, typically you have the most restrictive schedules. When would you propose? I think that we could meet on Thursday. We could meet on Friday.
I'm okay anytime after from 4 o'clock on Thursday, or even 3:30 if necessary. And Friday, I'm wide open.
Chris, what works well for you? I know you have a lot of things already scheduled.
If 1 o'clock on Friday, I can't do Thursday, and I'm sorry to be so restrictive, but that would be preferable.
Mr. Wolf, does that work for you? 1 p.m. on Friday?
I am looking 1 p.m. I want to make one comment. Yes, it works for me right now for 1 o'clock. However, Town Manager Swisher and I are going to need to be in court Friday morning at roughly 10 o'clock. While I think that we would be through by then, I would just advise you that there is that possibility we could get caught in court.
All right, let's look at Thursday afternoon and evening. Chris?
I think.
Yeah, I would say between 1 and 4 would be fine for me.
On Thursday?
Yes. If I can, I think I can work that out. I can move some things around. I don't want them to be caught up in court. So that's fine between 1 and 4.
I don't think we can do anything on Thursday till after 4.
Okay. So we want to back it up on Friday, maybe 3 o'clock on Friday instead.
I would surely think that we would be out of court by then.
I agree. I think that'll work.
I'd like to make a lawyer joke, but this is too serious.
Oh, go ahead, man. Go ahead. If it's going to make us laugh, go ahead and do it.
How expensive is this hearing going to be for us, Mr. Wolf?
That was a good one, Mayor.
Is there any way we could do 2 or 2:30? I have a 3 o'clock and I can try to reschedule it, but if I don't have to, is that possible? John, would that push you too much? 2:30?
Well, and I would hope that we wouldn't be pushing at 1 o'clock, but 2:30. Go ahead and try 2:30.
Right.
Yeah.
How about let's go with 2 o'clock then? Does that sound
2 o'clock.
okay?
That's fine,
Thank you. I'm sorry.
We'll certainly let the court know that we've got to be in a meeting at that time.
Mr. Swisher, do you think that will work?
I'll be with Mr. Wolf, so if it works for him, it'll work for me.
I'll make the motion to continue our open
Well,
meeting
hang
tonight.
on a second. I want to make sure with Kenny and Joe, does that work for you, 2 p.m. on Friday? Yes?
Yeah, that's all
Okay.
right.
All right. So,
That's fine.
all right. So let's, now we have 24 hours. So anyone who did not call in today, if Dave Southard wants to make further comments, or anyone who did not call in today, did not speak today, anyone who did speak today, we are still accepting public comments in written form sent to Keith Hooker, which is khooker@toknc.com is the email address. It's also on the agenda, our town clerk. So we accept those for 24 hours after the public hearing ends, but that's a little awkward because that's, 9 o'clock tomorrow night. So why don't we say we'll take public comments, we'll extend it, we'll take public comments until 5 p.m. on Thursday. So comments need to be submitted to Keith Hooker by 5 p.m. on Thursday, and then we'll have the meeting at 2 p.m. on Friday. So comments need to be received by Thursday, February 4th at 5 p.m. The meeting for the purposes of the vote would be on Friday, February 5th at 2 p.m. Mr. Hooker, does that work for your schedule?
Yes, Madam Mayor, that should be fine.
Okay, so if the motion could include both of those things, would be a motion to continue this zoning case docket K784. And I'm willing to entertain a motion at this time.
So moved.
All right, Mr. Hooker, do you have that? Okay,
And I'll be glad to second it.
Okay, I have a motion by Alderman Thompson, a second by Alderman Boyer to continue this public hearing item docket K784 to Friday, February 5th at 2 p.m. for the purposes of the vote, with public comments being accepted until a deadline of 5 p.m. Thursday, February 4th, addressed to Keith Hooker, khooker@toknc.com. And then he will distribute them to all of us and also post them on our website. Given this is a remote meeting, I do have to take a roll call vote. Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, how do you vote?
In favor. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Cruz, how do you vote?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Thompson, how do you vote?
In favor. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Penix, how do you vote?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Boyer, how do you vote?
In favor of continuing to Friday at 2 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so this public hearing is then continued. Mr. Hooker, did you get everything you needed from that vote? I see your microphone is on.
That was Alderman Thompson.
Alderman Thompson made the motion. Alderman Boyer made the second. Is that everything you need, Mr. Hooker?
Yes.
All right. All right. And I think this is probably by now a unanimous request of the board to have a brief recess. So let us reconvene at, let's see, 9:12 p.m.
Thank you.
The public session is A, speakers from the floor. Mr. Swisher, is there anyone who has come into the courtroom who'd like to speak to the board on an item that is, or issue that is not included on our agenda?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Mateus, is there anyone who's called in who'd like to address the board under item 2A, speakers from the floor?
No, Madam Mayor, we have no one called in.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to item 2B, consideration of an appeal to a demolition order for property located at 512 Edgewood Street. Mr. Swisher?
Madam Mayor, I'll turn this over to Mr. Horny and Mr. Hoffner. I don't know which one of them will go first, but I think they'll both have some information regarding this issue.
Madam Mayor, I'd be happy to start. A brief introduction about the case. This is a house located at 512 Edgewood Street. We had numerous code enforcement issues with the house and the property, which culminated in some structural damage to the house, to which we issued an order to repair. The order to repair expired November the 17th of 2020. No permits were obtained, no work was done to the house. Therefore, we followed up with an order to demolish, which expired on January the 22nd. However, state law allows the property owner to appeal to the Board of Aldermen if they wish, and Mr. Smith has chosen to do that, and I believe he's in the audience. I can answer any procedural questions as far as the rules, as far as the order to demolish. If you have any specific questions regarding the state of the house, Mr. Herman Hoffner is here to answer those.
Apologies. Thank you, Mr. Horny. Mr. Hoffner, do you have anything to add at this time?
No, ma'am. Basically, and there is structural issues, and therefore we have feel that it is to proceed with having the remove the house from the property.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Swisher,
Madam Mayor, I don't know if anyone else was able to hear Mr. Hoffner, but he was cutting in and out quite often.
I heard that he said there were structural issues with the house, and that's why they were moving forward. Did you have anything to add to that, Mr. Hoffner?
Ma'am, I have no other comment.
Mr. Horny, did you have anything else to add?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Mr. Swisher, do you have anything else at this time on this?
I would just ask a question, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Mr. Horny, have all the statutory requirements been met to this time?
Yes, sir.
And there's been a full hearing in the matter, is that correct?
Yes, sir. We have posted notice. We've had our mailings. We've had our hearing, and we've given order to take corrective action. Once that was not heeded, that's how we got to this point with the order to demolish.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
When did you first issue notice?
Madam Mayor, I don't have that number on the date of the original notice, but it expired on November the 17th. So I would imagine it would be early October.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Smith? I would recognize you at this time.
He's coming to the podium, Madam Mayor.
Perfect. The podium does not currently have the camera on.
And we're turning it on.
Okay, thank you.
Hello? Okay.
Hello, we can hear you just fine. Mr. Smith, if you'd like to.
Yes. I live in Kernersville still. I lived at 512 Edgewood. And I'm not familiar with this. Like I said, they sent a notice, they said, but I had never even got what was wrong with the house other than I know the roof, a tree from my neighbor fell on and punched a hole in the roof, and the eaves need replacing. Other than that, that's all I knew. He claimed he sent out some papers, but I never received them. I don't know if the post office just COVID or what. But I was talked to a roofer about fixing the roof, but he got the COVID. But they told me getting these permits has been a problem. Now that you got to get them online. And Mr. Harmon told me that being that it was in this condemned thing, I probably wouldn't be able to get any permits. So it's been confusing to me the whole time where I didn't got the permits. I just need more time to get the house cleaned out. That you can't work on the house with 25 years of stuff in it. I've been cleaning it out from the inside because you got to clean it out completely because I've got to have the floors checked, the roof, and the eaves. And I don't know what else he thinks wrong with it because I've never received no notice on anything else. It's structurally, other than the roof and the eaves, that's all I know. So I don't know what they're talking about, a whole lot of it. He said something about the back porch, but this house was built in 1959. It was probably built correctly for that time period. But if it needs some more bracing, I'll brace it more. But I haven't really talked to Mr. Harmon that much, so I have no idea really what he's talking about other than the roof and the eaves of the house. But I'll have that fixed. That's what I was planning on fixing it, either, well, probably selling the property. Because I've got several other properties in Kernersville and around the area. And like I said, there's just personal stuff still in there, but not very much. But I've been trying to clean the inside of it out and the outside of the property. They came in there about a year ago and built a house beside me. They cut a lot in half and built a road beside me and a house. And that's what started this problem. The field beside me wasn't nothing but growed up woods with junk in it and an old rotten building for 25 years. And they just cleaned it out last year. So I need a little time to clean my property up. It does look better. They made it look a lot better in the area when they cleaned those woods out. And that's what I'm planning on straightening mine up, but I just need more time. And that's all I got to say. I mean, as far as I know structurally, I'll have to get with Mr. Harmon, but the only thing I know is the roof and the eaves. And if there's, like I said, anything wrong with the back porch, it was built that way back in 1959. Y'all didn't have the same requirements, I'm sure, back then that you do now. But if it needs more structural support, I'll have it put under it. That's all I got to say. Just give me more time to get it straightened up. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
I would like to ask Madam Mayor a few questions.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead, Mr. Wolf.
Mr. Smith, all the junk cars in the property next door, those were yours, were they not?
Yes, and they're gone.
Yeah, now they're gone after how many years?
Well, they wasn't junk. I moved them right after they told me that they needed to be moved. They were moved.
So there's nothing wrong with this house. Would you live in this house?
Yes, I was living in it until they told me I couldn't. I was staying there part-time. Yes.
With the tree through the middle of the house.
Well, it just punched a hole that big in the top of the roof, and I had it patched by a roofer, but he didn't patch it correctly.
Thus all the water in the house, correct?
That's where the patch came loose when I was in the mountains helping my daughter, and the patch came loose at that time.
Okay. And the patch has not been repatched, has it?
I put a tarp over it, and I've got a roofer that's going to re-roof and fix the whole roof. I mean,
do you have a contract with you tonight?
No, I don't have one tonight, but
Do you have a contract with any contractor, builder, repair person? Do you have any contract with you tonight indicating that they are going to fix this house?
No, sir, but I'll get one. Just tell me how to get the permits, or does the contractor get the permits? I've never done anything like this before.
When was the hearing in this matter?
I never had a hearing. They just told me they decided this. I was never at no meeting.
So this just comes out of the blue to you?
Pretty much, yes.
What do you mean by pretty much?
They just told me over the phone this was going to happen, and then stuck a notice on the door. That's, and they didn't even really tell me how to get permits. So they told me I couldn't get them till you give me more time.
Have you sought any advice from an attorney?
Not yet, sir, but I probably will have to if we destroy the house, because they broke in my house when I was up in the mountains helping my daughter, and they told somebody they couldn't get a hold of me, I'm sure, but they've had my phone number since those cars were there. So why didn't someone call me? Explain that.
You have had excuses for this house being in utter disrepair, as well as other homes that you have owned and own. Isn't that correct?
Well, this has nothing to do with other houses.
Well, it does from the standpoint of your unwillingness to take care of any property. Now, as a matter of fact, you have other property that has been condemned, specifically by the city of Winston-Salem, correct?
Correct, but it's been fixed. And no one has ever lived in that house. Nobody's lived in that house for 20 years. And I will not have anybody in that house again. Nobody will live in that house as long as I live. I fixed it. The one that you're talking about in Winston.
Oh.
That has nothing to do with this house. That is on a property that I own that has a commercial wrecking yard, and I let one person live in it. They tore the house up. I fixed it. Nobody will never live in that house no more, not long as I live.
And it took years to get you to do anything, didn't it?
No, sir, but I'm planning on selling this house. I have no use for it. Now, if I tear the house down, I'll build a fence around it, and I'll keep the property till the day I die. And what I do with it, I have no idea.
But you will clean it up? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. If I'm moving from the property, I have to clean it up if I'm planning on selling it.
Did you take any action whatsoever, to clear this property? To remove the house?
To remove what house? I'm trying to fix it.
And what efforts have you made? You say you have no contract from anyone to fix it.
I can't get a contract till I get permits. And they told me I couldn't get permits till I come to this meeting, is what I was told. Maybe I was told wrong, but that's what I was told. That I couldn't get any permits.
You've been told wrong from so many people. Isn't that true?
I must have on this case right here, because I called some girl that was supposed to help me get through the permits that said we had to get them online. And then I was told by Mr. Harmon that I probably couldn't get any until we had this meeting. Now, I don't know. That's what I was told, honest to God. And that's the only reason I haven't got any permits. And I'll get a contractor on the roof and the eaves as soon as possible. And as far as I know, structurally, that's all that's wrong with the house.
Do you have anyone here who will state that? Have you brought a witness with you tonight?
No, there wasn't but me. I'm responsible for all of it. Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. I want to clean the property off completely, and like I said, liquidate it. I don't need it. I'm one of them that signed to give y'all the property next door that y'all cleaned off. The city owns the property next door because we didn't need it. Is there anything else?
I've got one question.
Mr. Smith,
Okay.
I've got one question.
Yes, sir.
I recognize Alderman Penix.
Mr. Smith, do you live in the vicinity of that property?
Not right now, no, sir. I did. I lived in that. Yeah, I live in Kernersville. I lived in that house until they told me I couldn't. Mr. Harmon said I couldn't stay in there, but I was in there until he told me I couldn't.
Okay.
I was out of town for about a month and came back, and that's when this happened. And like I said, no one called me. Nobody said nothing. They were working at that new house they built beside me. So I guess they were coming by it every day, in and out. But they built a new house right beside it.
Madam Mayor, if you don't mind, I'd like for Mike to go through the timeline a little bit, because it's my understanding that Mr. Smith knows a little more about what he needed to do than what he's indicated, and was told a little more than the eaves and the roof, and also that he was served with paperwork. I think they served him maybe at his house over in Timber Trails, but I'm not 100% sure. So I'd like for Mr. Horny to go through that just roughly after Alderman Thompson asks us his question.
That'd be fine. Mr. Thompson?
I'm sorry, Curtis, to interrupt you. Herman, did you notify him that he had to move out of the house?
Herman, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. For my knowledge, I've been here since March of last year. And he's not lived in that home as long as I've been doing it. He's never lived there. And I have met him on the property. I actually walked around and showed him what it in person.
Okay. So you never told him he had to move out of the house?
No, sir.
Okay.
Cut out a little bit.
That's Herman, but
That time we really did not hear you very well. Herman, you are logged in twice. It looks like we've got you by phone and by camera. I'll take suggestions from Mateus how to hear him a little more clearer. Should he hang up and call in on the public call-in line? Or is there something he could do so we can hear him a little better?
So the two accounts are, one of them is his camera and the phone he uses. If he were to hang up and call back in, I believe we should get that call. He turns off speakerphone and uses the normal.
Could you call back in? Could you hang up and call? Do you know the phone number?
Ma'am.
Mateus, can you give him the phone number you'd like him to call in on?
Alderman, do you receive email on that phone?
No, sir.
Give me a phone number is going to be 336-992.
992.
Oh, sorry, 336-996. 7289.
7289. All right, I'm gonna call that number now.
Madam Mayor, who has control of the podium microphone?
Crystal. We'll mute it so it doesn't have feedback.
And I don't have to have Herman answer my question that he did not say that he was told Mr. Smith that he couldn't live there. And Mike can probably answer my questions as far as the safety of the structure, I guess, is the point, and what really needs to be done, and whether it's either contractor, permits, or anything else to fix it, I guess, is the point. I'm just curious as to what's really going to need to be done to get it fixed, and is it doable, for lack of better terms?
Well, I can answer as far as what's listed on the order. And then, but real fast, to respond to the notice that Mr. Swisher was referring to, throughout the entire process, the orders, to repair, the hearings, all of those notices were mailed to the address on Edgewood Street, the address, his home address. I don't recall what it is off the top of my head. Also posted on the various addresses. In fact, he contacted me after he received his notice. So this talk of not receiving notice and the what for is, I'm not sure where that comes from. I'd also like to point out while we're talking about it that this is, I believe, my fourth time being involved with this property. The three other times being for large nuisance violations that included having to clean the yard up. Almost towing cars. Mr. Smith did remove the car right before we did, and a few other violations. So we've been through this a few times, and pretty much every time I've been told that he did not receive notice. However, he had something that he called me with, so I just would like to point that out. Now, as far as to answer your question, as far as the house is concerned, what I have here is there's a large hole in the roof. Improperly patched. Sections of the roof are collapsing. The electrical service cables to the structure is in a state of detachment. The rot and decay of the front house band has improper support. And the rear porch braced with non-code compliant steps, missing pickets, deflecting band, incorrect hanger installation, and floor joist decay, causing it to pull away from the house. So, in reference to how we've received complaints, numerous complaints over the years about this house, and that's how this case came to be. Hope that answers your question.
It does, and I guess the reason I was asking you, thank you, Mike, and Herman, from an inspection standpoint, structurally, if the house, it sounds to me structurally that the house is so much in ill repair, it can't be fixed, basically. I mean, what would make sense here is to raise the house and get rid of a safety hazard for the town. And I hate that for any house, and you, Mr. Smith, but that sounds to me like that's what needs to be done. I guess I would ask Herman to comment on that if that's the case. Since you've seen it, you've been there, and structurally from an inspection standpoint, you know more than the rest of us on that.
Yes, sir. It, like I say, is in need of some structural issues. The front band, the rear band, the roof in several locations. Whoever patched the roof in the past did not do it properly, and so it's just caused it to deteriorate even further. The rear porch does not appear to ever have been completed. I'm not sure how old it is, but like I say, because of the fact that it is not constructed properly, the band is deflecting and drooping severely, and then it started pulling away from the house. So it's it could collapse if it's not something's not done soon.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith, can I ask one question?
Yes, please. This is Joe
Smith, I'm Joe Penix.
Which one is okay?
Here, right here.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Just from what I've heard, and I'm not been in the house or been on the property, but I know where you're talking about. Don't you think, from what we've discussed here and all the things that are wrong with that house, you would decrease your liability by just going ahead and having the house torn down? It seems like that and maybe trying to sell the lot. Don't you think that would probably be your best possibility?
Okay. No, sir. I don't. I don't think there's that much wrong with the house, other than I do need to check the porch, what he's talking about. I've never seen it pulling away, but it does have awful light supports underneath it. But nobody's never been on it in the last 10 or 12 years. I haven't went out the back porch that much. But it has light supports underneath it. But I've never seen it pulling away from the house now. But that can be corrected. A new porch can be built if that's what it needs. The house itself is structurally sound.
Well, it sounds like it's not just the porch, it's the roof and the eaves.
The only thing wrong.
And the support.
The only thing wrong with the roof is one little corner. There's something a little bit, but the roofers will fix that when they fix the whole roof. There's nothing wrong except with a hole in it where a pine tree hit it. And the next to where he's talking about where the power cable hooks on, there might be one piece of plywood that's a little deteriorated. But when they fix the roof, they'll put new plywood over there.
When did the tree hit it?
I'm really not sure. It was one of the neighbor's trees before the neighbor came in, and the neighbor came in and made a road right beside the house, and he cleaned all the trees out. But it was one of his trees that was there that fell over, an old pine tree.
When was he doing that work?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about the dates. I should have had a roof put on it. I know that, but I thought the patch would hold.
I think the tree laid on the house about 6 months or so, didn't it, Mike?
It shouldn't have been that long. No, we cut the tree off immediately. It might have been leaning over, but it was immediately cut off and the roof patched. It might have laid out in the yard, but it was not on the house. The guy that patched, it was cut off immediately. You couldn't have that. You couldn't have that hole like that without a patch on it. The hole's only about that big where a limb was. And he put a plywood patch over it and sealed it. But I didn't know that plywood would bow up. It bowed up. He should have known that. He was supposedly a roofer. I paid him a roofer to fix it. But as far as I know it, yeah.
Mike, you're getting ready to say something. Go ahead, please.
I would say that the tree, I don't know exactly how long it laid on the roof. It was a matter, I'm thinking it was a matter of months, but I'll have to check my photos on that. It was a while. I believe every opportunity was given in this case. And we notified along the way So I just wanted to point that out.
And Mike, I've got one more question. I mean, how many times did we notify Mr. Smith about the items in the front yard that needed to be removed, the items in the backyard that needed to be removed, the cars next door that needed to be removed? I mean, did he haul all those cars next door off, or did we haul some of those cars off?
I'm in the middle of the meeting. I'm sorry, I'm in the middle of it.
We had to, just in my time since 2015 in this position, I have led a group in the yard of public service employees, cleaning up, cans and discarded items throughout the limbs in the yard, discarded items throughout. Marcy Kennedy, our code enforcement zoning official, has also done the same thing. So those 2 times, I believe there was a third, but I don't have that in front of me, to where we've actually had to have a town response to go out and clean the yard up. The whole time the house was going towards this state, but the tree laying on it for however long is what pushed it over to the condemnation status.
And the vehicles that were mentioned at the house next door, did Mr. Smith remove those all, or did we remove some of those?
Well, actually, he did remove some of those. We had the tow truck worked out, and he actually used the same tow truck driver that we do. And so he had those removed the day that we were going to get them. So as I was making the call, he was already en route to remove remove the vehicles.
Are there any junk vehicles still at this location, in the front or in the back?
I don't believe there's any in the front. I think there may be some in the back, but I can't speak on that. So Mr. Smith, whatever Mr. Smith says on that, but I'm not sure. There was at one time.
Okay. Thank you, Mike.
Mr. Smith, nobody wants to condemn your house, but when it becomes a safety concern for us, a liability concern for us, a liability concern for you, it leaves us no option. And when it's gone neglected for as long as it has, and you have or you have not gotten notices, we've got a certified inspector that's said that it's got structural problems that are going to be hard to fix. It's hard for us not to move forward to make sure that we're looking out for the best interests of the citizens of Kernersville.
And I want Mike or Herman, either one, to clarify something. Mr. Smith said that he told Mr. Wolf that he couldn't get estimates to repair the roof and repair the structures and this and that because he could not get a permit. But unless I'm wrong, I think folks go out and get estimates to do all kinds of work before they ever get the permit. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that would be correct. It just does not require a permit for him to get estimates on repairs and things of that nature.
And he was aware that he needed to do the roof and the back porch at least.
Yes, sir.
And never got any estimates to do either of those.
Yes, sir. That is correct.
Let me ask about the notice. I just want to confirm, I thought I heard Mike Corney say that notice had been mailed to Mr. Smith at the Edgewood Street address and had also been posted on the front door of the Edgewood Street house.
Yes, Madam Mayor. We sent it to the Edgewood Street. Marcy Kennedy actually discovered his actual home address, mailed it there as well. And I believe we've mailed it to a P.O. box. I think we've sent more letters to this house for any one instance than any that I've been a part of. Also posted on the door, just in case the letter was not answered or collected. And of course, that letter is gone off the door. So.
Okay, and so that's the letter that we sent on September 17th, or September 11th?
That would be about the right time period. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's in your in Curtis's memo. Those are dates given, that it was condemned on 9/11/2020, and that he was served an order to repair on 9/17/2020 with a completion date of 11/17/2020.
That's correct.
But we don't have the date of the order to demolish. So when was that given to him?
The order to demolish was issued on December the 21st, set to expire Friday, January 22nd. So this is what he is actually appealing, is the order to demolish that was issued.
So that order to demolish was mailed to him at Edgewood Street at what's thought to be his personal address, at a post office box address, and also posted on the front door of the Edgewood Street property.
Yes, ma'am. And he's correct. I do have his telephone number, and I called him personally, leaving him a voicemail to let him know that it was coming. After which, when he received the mail, he called me back and we had this conversation.
Okay, thank you.
And as a courtesy to Mr. Smith, I personally picked up his appeal letter that was addressed to myself in the town. And I met him at the property and brought that back for this case.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yes, he did tell me about the appeal, but nobody never called me and let me know about the other until this demolished thing come up. I don't know. I've never been in nothing like this. And you couldn't get, you had to get permits. So you told me, and that's the only reason I was waiting. I mean, this has been a confusing thing for me, but I never received what was really wrong with the property. If they sent one out, I never got it. I don't know what the post office done with it, but I never received nothing. The only thing I received was the order to demolish. And once I got that, he told me I probably couldn't get any permits. I didn't know about the other one, or I'd have went ahead and I didn't know you could get a contractor. I mean, I've talked to my roofer, and before he got to COVID, he was going to check about getting the permits. But he's over it, I think, now. I don't. He had a pretty rough time of it, but he had the COVID-19. But I didn't know I could, that I could go ahead and get a contract with him to fix the roof. He's fixed other roofs for me. This other guy.
Mike, did you have a hearing on the phone with Mr. Smith?
Yes, that would have been how we would have done it. Herman, did he call us for his hearing?
He was late, but yes, we did have, and I did tell him that that was his hearing and what it was about, and just basically reviewed the information with you. So he did have a hearing on the phone.
And that hearing was in reference to the notices that he claims he never got, correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct. Every notice he was ever sent was posted on the property, and pictures was taken.
And he called you to have that hearing on the phone. So if he called you to have the hearing on the phone, he got the notices.
Yes, sir, that's correct. And like I say, he was late. He was late, but I try to work with anybody as long as they call.
I'd like to point out as well that the hearing over the phone was for the order to repair. So there's a two-step process. If you don't repair based off of the order, then that's when the order to demolish comes out. So as far as notice and who got what, Mr. Smith's been aware of this the whole time it's been going on. As far as saying he didn't, he's on the phone for an order to repair, and that's how, by not doing anything about it at that time, that's how we got the order to demolish, which has also now expired. So that's where we're at tonight.
And he clearly got the notice to demolish because he's appealed it because he's here tonight appealing it.
Correct.
That is the appeal for the order to demolish. So that I'm correct, Mr. Smith was sent the order to repair to Edgewood Street, to a P.O. box, to his home where he's now residing. He called in to have the hearing on that notice to repair with Mr. Hoffner. So he had to get the notice to repair. There's only two notices he's been sent out, the notice to repair and the notice to demolish. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, sir.
And if he had the hearing on the phone, he got the notice to repair. And if he is here tonight, he got the order to demolish. So he's received both orders that he's claiming that it didn't receive. So
That's correct.
I don't know what else to tell the board as far as.
No, I didn't get the order of what was wrong with the house. He told me I had pictures coming and tell me what I needed to fix. I hadn't talked to Mr. Harmon. He's been busy. But I was supposed to get what I needed, and I never received it. They told me it was coming in the mail, but I never got it. So I really didn't know what needed fixing other than the roof and the eaves. And they didn't say nothing about the eaves.
Okay, you knew the roof and the eaves, and you didn't repair either of those.
I was waiting on the pictures what to fix the whole house and get a contractor on it.
Well, I would have probably started with a hole in the roof.
But I never received anything. Harmon told me he had mailed it, but I never received it.
I don't know. Would you like to tell us what you told Mr. Smith on the phone that needed to be repaired? Just the basics in
we reviewed the items that were, that's part of the hearing, is to go over the items that needed to be repaired. And like I say, I have met him there in person and actually, pointed to the items that needed to be corrected as well. Also reiterating the fact that whoever had patched the roof had patched it, was not an approved patch. So that had caused his roof to continue to leak and deteriorate. But I did walk him around and show him all the different issues and tried to show him the deflection in the rear porch and all that.
Wait a minute, you're on mute. Flip it back on, Chris.
All right, now can you hear me?
Yeah, we could hear you. Mr. Smith was speaking, but we couldn't hear him.
Oh, well, I didn't want to speak. Harmon, don't tell no lies now. Now, I respect you and I like you. The only time you told me anything or showed me is when you took the paper for me to come right here. That's the only time I met you, right there in that driveway. And you told me about the bottom and other. You did. But don't lie. Let's tell the truth. You told me right then, other than that, you ain't met me on the property. Now, I ain't telling you.
Mr. Smith, you are out of order.
I'm sorry.
Accusing a town employee of lying, and you keep talking to Mr. Harmon. Are you talking about Herman Hoffner, Mike Horney, or Keith Hooker when you talk about Mr. Harmon?
Just Mr. Harmon. He's never took me around the property, ma'am. I'm sorry about being out of order.
Since he showed you at the property, what use would photographs be to you?
The only time he told me about anything on the property is when he took the paper for me to come here to appeal this. And I swear on the Holy Bible that he's never took me around that property other than we was right in the driveway and I handed him the paper for him to get me here. That's the only time I met him in the yard.
So did you meet him on January 11th, 2021? The clerk has made a note that that's the day he received your request for appeal.
That was the only day that I met him in my yard.
So have you made any plans from January 11th to today's date for repair of any of these issues?
I've talked to my roofer, and he's getting over that COVID, and he's got a crew that can work on it right off. But do I need to get a permit, or does he need to get a permit? That's the only time he's told me anything. And he really didn't say exactly what was wrong with the back porch, but I know now.
Well, Mr. Smith, if he's a licensed roofer, he'll know that he's one that needs to get a permit. And I think Mr. Hoffman was talking, were you going to say something when the mayor was asking about January the 11th? Go ahead, Mr. Hoffman. Herman,
when you met Mr. Smith out at the property,
Yes, ma'am.
was it January 11th?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did you?
And I had met him previously on site, and when he's talking about the construction of the new house next door, he had when I was at inspections, we had talked before, and I've met him there several times, and we have walked around the property.
All right, thank you. Mr. Swisher, do you have a recommendation?
I have a recommendation. I recommend that you move forward with the demolition, and either Mr. Smith does or the town does it, for several reasons. Number one, Mr. Smith is saying he can't get a roofer and he can't do this and can't do that. And I know for a fact there's more than one roofer in Kernersville, and if I owned a house that had a hole in the roof and the town told me you need to get that hole in the roof fixed or we're going to tear your house down, I'm going to call another roofer. And it's pretty simple. I'm sorry his roofer had COVID, and I know you like to use the people you use, but if it's either that or my house is going to be torn down, if I'm worried about that house being torn down, I'm going to call another roofer and I'm going to start roofing. If he had questions about, do I get a permit first or do I get an estimate first, he could have simply called either Mr. Horney or Mr. Hoffner and got that. We've been dealing with Mr. Smith for more than this length of time. As I pointed out before, he's had junk cars that we've dealt with. He's had trash that we've dealt with. He's had junk cars that we've dealt with. I mean, and it's been an ongoing battle for years. I mean, I've been over to the house. Mr. Wolf's been in the house. Mr. Powell's been in the house. Mr. Hoffner, Mr. Horney, everybody in community development. We've been to the house next door. I mean, we tore the house next door down. This house needs to be torn down as well. If you give Mr. Smith more time, in the end, you're going to be right back here. And he's shaking his head no. You might not be right back here, but when he gets into it, the cost to fix this house and bring it up to code, it's going to be something that Mr. Smith's not going to do. And we're either going to have to go right back through this process and land here at the end of the year, or you go ahead and move forward tearing it down. I don't like to tear anybody's house down, clearly. I've had houses of my own that I've had to tear down and didn't want to do that. If someone was living in this house, it might be different. But I can tell you, and Mr. Penix asked the question, are you not as well ahead of the game by tearing the house down and selling the lot? That lot is as valuable with the house off of it as it is with a house on it. So I hate it for Mr. Smith, but it's time that Mr. Smith tears the house down and moves on. And if he can't seem to find the contractor, like he couldn't find a roofer, we can find somebody to tear it down for him and send him the bill. That's what needs to happen. That's my recommendation. And I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have. But it's time to roll on, and I think we need to do that.
I'd like to ask a question, Mr. Wolf.
Yes, ma'am.
John, do you feel that since this is a process that has some statutory requirements and has some requirements from the town of Kernersville ordinances and involves staff from inspections and public services, community development, and the town manager's office, do you feel like all of the requirements were met for any kind of notice that was required and any kind of process that was required under the various laws that apply?
Madam Mayor, that was why I asked the question of Mr. Horney as to whether all the statutory requirements were met. And he said, yes, they were. I have had experience with this property over a long period of time, and I will not go into it. But when Mr. Horny says that all the statutory requirements have been met, and when Mr. Smith comes in before you and says that he does not have any contracts, doesn't have any witnesses, doesn't have anybody other than his word that this happened and that happened, then frankly, as Mr. Swisher said, we need to roll on. This board needs to make a decision, one way or another. What is the town going to do? What is the town going to do with this property? And how will it affect other properties in town? Not only the good properties in town, but other properties that may wind up in this condition. Are we going to just turn a blind eye, or are we going to take action? And that's what we have an inspections department for. That's what we always try to work with people. And I know I've worked with Mike Horny for far long enough to know that he abides by what we have always tried to do, and that's work with our citizens, work with folks, try to do, we bend over backwards. But when we don't get cooperation, when something sits there and is a danger to anyone who comes around that house, and I dare say that in the condition this house is in, it is a real danger to anyone that comes around the house. When you're dealing with electrical, when you're dealing with rotten portions of a house, that's liability. And if we don't, as a town, do something about it, I think we're liable. You've seen cases, national cases, where cities have not done something about those dangerous places within its municipality. And I say to you that I think this is one of those. So this board has to make a decision. How are you going to progress with it?
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Any comments, questions, discussion by the board? Do I have a motion?
I'd just like to say, Mr. Smith, based on what's presented before us tonight, it appears that nothing's been done, and that several things over a long length of time have been presented to you to be able to do something about it, and here we are. So I make a motion to move forward with the demolition of 512 Edgewood Drive. We're looking out for the safety of our citizens, unfortunately, and that's what we have to do. I'd also like to make sure that it's not at the town's expense. If whoever has to do it, I don't think it should be at the town's expense to have to tear it down.
Madam Mayor, Mr. Smith asked to say something, but that's up to you. But if you want to, we can turn his mic back on, or you can get a second and then let him say something either way.
All right. And just to follow up with Chris's motion and the question within the motion, is it still the policy that the town would bear the expense of tearing it down, but then it would be a lien on the property?
That is correct. If Mr. Smith does not tear it down, then we will, and we'll put a lien on the property. Is that correct, Mike?
Are you okay with that as part of your motion? That if Mr. Smith doesn't tear it down, that it would be torn down by the town and a lien placed on the property in accordance with our procedures? Mr. Thompson?
Sorry, that's correct. I didn't realize I was off.
That's okay. I thank you for not muffling the sound of others by turning your mic off properly. So, all right. So the motion includes that. Do I have a second to the motion?
Do you want Mr. Smith to say something first, Madam Mayor, or do you want to wait and get a second?
I'd like to get a second first.
Okay.
I'll give you a second, Mayor. It's Mayor Pro Tem Polson.
Okay, I've got a motion, a second, and now I'll hear a comment from Mr. Smith. Crystal, if you can unmute his mic.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. All I'm asking is just give me 90 days. If I don't have it fixed, and I'll get with Mr. Herman Hoffner, and I want him to inspect it, to check it, of course. That's the only reason I haven't done anything already. I mean, I want to do it right. I didn't want to just have it done and then him come out there, and that's why I didn't get permits. Just give me 90 days to get the roof, and if I don't get it done in 90 days, I'll have it demolished. That's all I'm asking.
Madam Mayor, say something.
Go ahead, John.
We hear these pleas all the time. Give me 90 days, give me 90 days. This board has heard, give me 90 days, give me 90 days, and that just doesn't get it. But let me tell the board what we have done in the past. Should you approve of this motion, we always go back to the property owner and tell the property owner, if you can get this demolished or under contract to demolish within 30 days, we will allow you to do that. And so in this case, Mr. Smith would have the opportunity of having someone demolish it, and he would pay for it. He's able to go out and get bids on it, and the town would not tear it down for that period of time. If that deadline is missed, then we immediately, without anything further before the board, demolish the property. We think that that's fair. That's not within the law. That's just the town of Kernersville, again, trying to go one more extra step in regard to who we deal business with. And I would tell you that if in fact the board orders the property demolished, it'll be my recommendation that we do that in this case. Thank you.
Mr. Swisher, thank you. Mr. Swisher, what would that date be, since Mr. Smith is in the courtroom today and can hear it? What would the deadline be for him to decide whether to and actually demolish the house on his own if the motion passes?
Today's February the 2nd, so I'm guessing it would be, what, Mike, March the 2nd?
There are only 28 days in February, so.
Yeah, so it's going to be,
got a couple.
Got 26, so it'll be March the 5th probably. Give a full 30 days. If we get it out tomorrow, it'd be March the 5th or 6th, one of those two. We would put it in the letter.
Okay.
I mean, we can set it tonight. We can set it for March the 6th. That would give him 30 days. I mean, it might be 31 days, but we can go 31 if we want to.
March 6th is a Saturday. You want to go Friday?
I would rather go Monday. Make it the 8th.
That'd be the 8th. Yes, sir.
Does that work,
Thank
Mike?
you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, because that way there's no issue about receiving it in the mail, although the town will mail it and post it on Edgewood Street, correct? Mike Horney?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So I have a motion by Alderman Thompson. I have a second by Mayor Pro Tem Fulton. Since this is a remote meeting, we do need to do this as a roll call vote. Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, how do you vote?
I'm in favor with the motion to get it demolished and giving Mr. Smith the opportunity through March 8th. Is that what I just wanted to make sure our motion was correct with the date in there.
Yes.
And I'm in favor, Mayor. Thank you.
Alderman Cruz?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Thompson? In favor. Alderman Penix?
In favor, thank you.
Alderman Boyer?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. I have Mayor Pro Tem Fulton in favor, Alderman Kenny Cruz in favor, Alderman Chris Thompson in favor, Alderman Joe Penix in favor, and Alderman Bruce Boyer in favor. The motion passes unanimously.
Mr. Swisher, can you make sure that you go over it again one more time with Mr. Smith before he leaves the courtroom?
Go over.
Just the motion is passed. The house is to be demolished, and he has the right until March 8th.
That's
to
correct.
demolish it himself.
Himself.
And if it's
I
not
just want to make
demolished,
sure Mr. Smith gets it.
that's correct. And if it's not demolished by March the 8th, the town will have it demolished and we'll put a lien on the property.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. My recommendation would be to go till 10:30, and then we could take another break if the board so desires. If that's okay. All right. So is there anything further we need to do on item 2B?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So we are on to 2C, consideration of an ordinance to amend traffic schedule 6 of chapter 9 of the Code of Ordinances by changing the truck restriction on certain streets. This is an issue that Alderman Kenny Cruz brought to our attention, so we appreciate him bringing this up. Mr. Swisher, do you have a presentation on this item?
Madam Mayor, to be brief, you have in your packet an ordinance that changes the truck restrictions on certain streets. It's what we've had, and it's what Alderman Cruz mentioned at the last meeting. We've had trucks that will park in the middle of Bodenhammer Street to unload cars for the dealerships, car dealerships nearby. Once they're unloaded, they will then drive through the neighborhood to turn around and go back the opposite direction on Bodenhammer Street. So we're asking the board to make the following streets with truck restrictions. Those streets are Trent Street, Justice Street, Pattison Street, Jefferson Street, and Vance Street. Excuse me. And what that will do is it will prohibit through trucks. And that means the trucks will now, when if the board adopts this, when the trucks unload on Bodenhammer Street, they will have to go up basically up Highway 66 and then get on Salem Parkway going either, I think it's north and south now, but I used to call it east and west, but either going toward Winston or going toward Greensboro, whichever way, whatever direction you want to call that, that's the way they would have to travel. If they are on Bodenhammer Street facing toward Main Street, then they could go on out Bodenhammer Street and pick up Mountain Street. But it's what it will do is it will prevent them from going through those neighborhoods. I did receive a call the other day from a resident in there that has experienced some problems. And I've had 2 or 3 other calls in the last couple of months. I know Alderman Cruz has also had some. The police department has had some. So it is an issue. It's not one that's every week or every day, but it's probably occurring 2 or 3 times a month, I would say. And Alderman Cruz might have a better idea of that, but I know it's at least 2 or 3 times a month. I'll be glad to answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you. Alderman Cruz, do you have anything to add to Curtis's presentation?
Yes, ma'am. Just that the tractor and trailers that are unloading there it's all hydraulic operated, meaning engines have got to be running and they've got to have lights on because they're out in the street. So that is a nuisance too. And the fact that what we're doing is giving our police department the right to do their job, where when calls come in to the dispatcher and they say, well, we can't enforce this, there's no signs. So if we don't have signs, we're working against our police department. We're not supporting our citizens. And any of these routes that where trucks are allowed, they're not delivery trucks going in to deliver at that one resident or one business, but these have already unloaded and they're just using the neighborhoods as access. But those streets where they're block off and they say no trucks, no through trucks, you can still take a truck into that area and unload if somebody's moving, or haul appliances or building supplies or anything of that nature, and it's still legal. So this is just a simple matter to protect and let our residents know we're working for them and that we're behind our police department, and we don't want to hassle with them not being able to do what we ask them to do. So I think this would be a good move.
Would you like to make a motion?
Yes, ma'am, I make a motion we put those signs up and enforce them, please.
Okay, I have a motion by Alderman Cruz. Do I have a second?
I'll second. Thank you, Kenny.
Okay, I've got a motion by Alderman Kenny Cruz, a second by Alderman Chris Thompson. Since this is a remote meeting, it'll again be a roll call vote. So Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, how do you vote?
In favor. Thank you, Kenny.
Alderman Cruz, how do you vote?
In favor, thank you.
Alderman Thompson, how do you vote?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Penix, how do you vote?
In favor. Thank you, Kenny.
Thank you. Alderman Boyer, how do you vote?
In favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Hopefully it'll be a little quieter on those streets. And Tim Summers is on the call and ready to enforce. All right, we are to item 2D, consideration of an ordinance to amend traffic schedule 4 of chapter 9 of the Code of Ordinances by adding the T turnaround on Regal View Drive to the schedule, no parking anytime. Mr. Swisher?
Madam Mayor, this is a new subdivision that is off Royal Coach Trail, which is down off of Glenview Drive in the southern part of town. This, like I said, new construction. They've got a T turnaround there. We need to add that so that we can add no parking. We're seeing cars parking in that T turnaround, which with cars there, it makes it difficult to use the T turnaround to turn around. So we need to implement no parking there so that we can have those folks park elsewhere.
Okay, are there any comments or do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve that.
I have a motion by Alderman Kenny Cruz. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a second by Chris and Bruce at the same time, so I'll recognize Alderman Bruce Boyer for that. All right, Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, how do you vote?
In favor. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Cruz, how do you vote?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Thompson, how do you vote?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Penix, how do you vote?
In favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Boyer, how do you vote?
In favor. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Consideration of a request by the Chamber of Commerce to hold various events in the town hall area. And I understand that Chris Comer is nearby if we have any questions of her, but I think this is a pretty standard request except for the months and dates are a little bit different due to adaptations to COVID-19. But Mr. Swisher, do you have any presentation on this for us?
Madam Mayor, you're correct. It is pretty standard request. They have 2 or 3 events every year that here in the courtyard. This year, they're requesting April 10th for Recycle Day from 8 a.m. to noon. May the 8th, Fair Food to Go from noon to 8 p.m. And then September 24th, 25th, and 26th for the fall spring folly with any luck. So that's the 3 dates they're requesting to use the town courtyard and some surrounding properties here around town, parking lots and so forth.
Fair Food to Go is very, very popular in Winston-Salem. So hopefully that'll be a good new event for our Chamber of Commerce. All right. Do I have any questions, comments, or a motion?
I move approval.
Second.
I have a motion by Alderman Joe Penix, and I have a second by Alderman Chris Thompson. Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, how do you vote?
In favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Cruz?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Thompson.
In favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Penix.
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Boyer.
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Item F is a consideration of a request by the Old Salem chapter of the Antique Automobile Association of America to hold the downtown cruise-ins from June 2021 to October 2021. Typically, we'll have someone from the Antique Automobile Association Old Salem chapter present to advocate for this, but I do not see anyone on the call. Mateus, did anyone call in?
No, Mayor, no one has called in.
Okay, Curtis, is there anyone in the courtroom who wanted to speak to this?
There was someone here, but he left about halfway through the rezoning.
Okay.
Crystal Tanner is here. She can answer any questions as well. She is part of that car club.
Okay.
But
and this is
basically it is what you said. It's June to October, 5 Saturdays from 4 to 7 p.m. It's the same area that they've had in the past. They're on Main Street. They'll be on Main Street. They'll skip over Mountain Street, and then they'll pick up on North Main. And they will have off-duty officers from 2 to 7, and then another one from 3 to 7 as well.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, I've got a motion for approval by Joe Penix, and I think I heard a second by Alderman Bruce Boyer. Is that correct?
I'll be glad to second it.
Okay. All right. Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, how do you vote?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Cruz?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Thompson?
In favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Penix?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Boyer?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Consideration of a resolution to accept a grant from the Firehouse Subs Public Safety Foundation.
Madam Mayor, this is a grant that the the fire rescue department submitted for approval, or they submitted it to the Firehouse Subs Foundation. It was a very competitive grant, but we were awarded $24,130.70 from the Firehouse Subs Public Safety Foundation. That is to be used to buy equipment for extrication protocols on vehicles and so forth. So we will use that money to buy that equipment to supplement the equipment we have there at the fire rescue department, and also to add some new equipment, obviously, to our lineup of equipment.
What wonderful news. Okay.
And there's no match on our end. It is $24,000 of no match.
What wonderful news, and how needed for this community, and how well it will be used. And we do work with other departments when we're called in on mutual aid. So this will help more than just the folks within the municipal limits of Kernersville. So do I have a motion to accept this? Do I have a motion to approve the resolution to accept the grant, or are there other comments first?
I don't have any comments other than it's admirable for a new business to move into town, and this is how they make their mark as they get here. So a motion to approve.
I'd like to second that motion and order a nice sub.
They have good ones.
All right, we've got a motion by Alderman Chris Thompson, a heartfelt second by Alderman Kenny Cruz. Mayor Pro Tem, how do you vote?
In favor, and I'll be eating Firehouse Subs this week, so thank you again.
Thank you. Alderman Cruz, how do you vote?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Thompson?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Penix?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Boyer?
In favor, thank you, and I like their brisket. It's really good.
The motion passes unanimously. Not far from where I predicted. It is currently 10:32, so I propose we take a 10-minute recess, and then we'll return for items 2A or 2H and the rest of the agenda. So for the next 10 minutes, this meeting is in recess. Our recess is over, and so we are back to the regular agenda. We are now on item 2H, consideration of a resolution authorizing the filing of an application for local government commission approval for a financing agreement for improvements to Ivy Redmond Sports Complex. Mr. Swisher?
Madam Mayor, this item was added after the briefing. And as I told the board, we've got some information that there are some favorable financing terms for construction projects now. So it's what this does. This gives permission for us to go out and seek bids from financial institutions regarding some capital improvement projects out at Ivy Redmond. It does not obligate the board to do those projects. It just gives us an idea of the financing terms that are available. We would certainly bring those back to the board. And, it's a long process from here out. If those terms are favorable and the board decides to move forward with some of those projects, we're still several months away from being able to do those. But this is the first step. Really, it's what this will tell you is, do you even want to really look at doing those projects, or are we still some time off from being able to do that because of the financing terms that are out there?
We have certainly had overwhelmingly positive response from the members of the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, citizens interested in recreation who are not serving on that board. And so I think that it's a timely matter to look into and do further work on. We've had a lot of support expressed from citizens in this regard. So are there any questions of Mr. Swisher? The board voted to add this to the agenda when we were at the briefing meeting, so you're familiar with the topic. Are there any questions tonight, or do I have a motion?
I have no questions. I motion to approve. We move forward.
Okay, I have a motion by Alderman Chris Thompson. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Alderman Joe Penix. Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, how do you vote?
In favor. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Cruz, how do you vote?
Favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Thompson?
In favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Penix?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Boyer?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. All right, we are to the consent agenda, which is item 3. A is approval of minutes for the January 6th briefing meeting. B, approval of minutes for the January 12 regular meeting. And C, approval of minutes for the January 12 closed session. Is there any alderman who'd like to have any of these items removed for further discussion? Are there any staff in attendance at this meeting or citizens in the courtroom who'd like to have any item removed from the consent agenda? And Mateus, I do not see that anyone has called in, but is there anyone who's called in who'd like to see an item removed from the agenda?
No, Madam Mayor, we've had no further calls.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve items 3A, B, and C of the consent agenda.
Okay, I've got a motion by Alderman Chris Thompson. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second by Alderman Kenny Cruz. Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, how do you vote?
In favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Cruz?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Thompson?
In favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Penix?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Boyer?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. All right, then speakers from the floor. Mr. Swisher, is there anyone who's joined us in the courtroom who'd like to address the board on an item not otherwise covered on the agenda?
No, ma'am. I think we've worn them out.
Okay, and Mateus, my understanding is from Mateus, there have been no further calls. So we'll move on then to the town manager's report and miscellaneous.
Madam Mayor, I've got 2 quick items. The first of which has nothing at all to do with the town, except for my youngest son is at home, believe it or not, watching me on YouTube, and he wants me to tug at my ears so that I'll know he's watching. So There you go, bud. I tug my ear and I go to bed. See everybody tugging and waving. So, yeah, the second item is, I want to show this. Can everybody see that? The town was awarded, and I'll read it to you. It's from the APWA Stormwater Project of the Year, category Natural Systems. So it was presented to the town of Kernersville and design build team, North State Environmental, Jennings Environmental, in recognition of the Beeson Creek stream restoration at Ivy Redmond Sports Complex. So this is a project that our public services staff, stormwater staff, undertook 2 or 3 years ago. They applied for that award and were awarded the award in November of 2020. So we just got that plaque. And I think you all are familiar with the project. I'll cover a few brief things about it. It was 2,000 linear feet of channel reconstruction with floodplain connection to create an equilibrium meandering riffle pool stream ecosystem. So basically it fixed the creek, took one that was in bad shape, a stream, made it much better through there. There's also 3 acres of floodplain wetland ponds with living shorelines for floodwater storage and riparian habits for birds and amphibians. And it stabilized the stormwater outfalls. And we got some permanent conservation easements on public and private land in the stream corridor. So, it was a really nice project, and it was recognized by some folks at the state, and we were given the award for that, for best project for that. So just wanted to let the board make you aware of that. We were very proud of the stream restoration, and the team at Public Services did a great job on that. And we're in the process of doing a little more.
Congratulations to our Stormwater Division and our Public Services Department.
And that's all I have. And my son texted and said to tell you all thank you. He's glad that y'all are paying attention.
Curtis, if that's your kind of news tonight, you can keep going.
Hey, I'm good. I think I'm done. I don't have anything else.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Wolf.
Other than a request for a closed session, Mayor, I have nothing further. Thank you.
All right. All right. Thank you. Let's see. Matters to be presented by the Mayor and Board of Aldermen. Mr. Powell, do you have anything tonight?
We're talking during the closed session.
Okay. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, do you have anything tonight?
Mayor Morgan, I just have a couple things real quick. First of all, congratulations, Doran, and your stream team. Y'all do a great job. The award is well deserved. Also, I took a phone call from Mrs. Yates, Doran, and she wanted me to pass along what a great job your team did on Porter Lane. And she said, please tell him today. So I wanted to get that in the meeting. Also, Ernie, I wanted to follow up with you to make sure you got the email on Providence Church from Mr. Gavin today. If you didn't, I'll be glad to forward it to you. And then I got an email about our fish downtown with all the algae in the pond, just making sure they're safe. A couple people are concerned about that. Also, it is that time of year where it's cold and it's time to give a kid a coat. So there are 5 more dates available. You can find those dates in today's Kernersville News under my little column, Ask Your Alderman. And then Chief Summers wanted to give a shout out to Officer Joyce because he really did help my old neighbor in Stonecroft. So that was a big deal. And then again, congratulations, Chief Alderman. If you would like to meet me for lunch, I'll take you to Firehouse Subs. So congratulations. And with that, that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Cruz?
I think I about wore out my welcome. Thank you.
You've never worn out your welcome. We're glad you're here with us tonight. Alderman Thompson?
I have nothing at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Penix?
No, ma'am, I have nothing.
Thank you. Alderman Boyer?
Nothing tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that many citizens will be happy to have the shredding event available again. I think that was one thing that was very missed when it was canceled. There's a lot of citizens who enjoy participating in that and also the many other chamber events. So I want to thank again the Chamber for their efforts to distribute PPE and to be innovative and to work with the other chambers in our community and to keep thinking of ways to have some of the fun we've had in the past, but in a new way, adapting to present circumstances. So at this time, is there anything further to cover in open session this evening? All right, may I have a motion for the board to go into closed session?
I usually get to read this, so I'll read it. It's my understanding, Madam Mayor, that there are certain matters about which our town attorney needs to advise us, including but not limited to land acquisition, and which fall within the attorney-client privilege for discussion in closed session, and the board must address. I therefore move, Madam Mayor, that the board go into closed session to confer with our legal counsel under the attorney-client privilege for such purposes.
Okay, I have a motion by Alderman Boyer. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Alderman Thompson. Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, how do you vote?
In favor. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Cruz?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Thompson?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Penix?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Boyer?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. All right, the board is now in closed session. Welcome back to the regular meeting of the Kernersville Board of Aldermen. We have just left closed session. Is there any further business before the board this evening? If not, may I have a motion to adjourn?
I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn.
I've got a motion from Chris. Yes.
Madam Mayor, you don't want to say that's a motion to adjourn.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you. Thank you for the
It
correction.
would be a motion to
I
continue.
need a motion to continue the meeting to Friday at 2 p.m.
Make a
So-
motion to continue the meeting to Friday at 2, which is Friday the 5th at 2 o'clock.
Got a motion from Alderman Thompson. Do I have a second?
Second, Mayor Pro Tem.
Second from Mayor Pro Tem Fulton.
Madam Mayor, for the record, that would be 5 o'clock Tuesday in the council chambers and on the town's YouTube page. Just want to make that clear for
I'm
the
sorry, I
record.
think it's at 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock on the 5th.
2 o'clock on February 5th.
Is that not what I said?
No, this is 5 p.m.
At 2 o'clock on February 5th in the council chambers and on the town's YouTube page,
Yes,
just for the record.
yes. And if you could,
Lexic after midnight.
if you could post Keith on the town's Facebook page or see that it's posted, that we are accepting comments until 5 p.m. on Thursday, February 4th, as a follow-up to the public hearing.
Yes.
And also, I would like to ask our town attorney about correcting the acreage in that agenda item. Should we, at this point, correct the acreage now that it was pointed out at the meeting that it had been printed as 13 and it's really a little over 9?
No, I think, Mayor, I think I would leave everything the way it is, except when you go to pass or deny the rezoning, you would state the correct acreage. You would make a finding, the board make a finding as to the actual acreage.
Okay. I'd request staff draft something up for the board on that so that we can be sure to have the amount correct, given there was so much discussion about it this evening. Mr. Swisher, can we do that? Or can we see that that's done?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So
Dawn, who was that had the motion and the second again?
I had the motion by Chris.
Yes.
And the second by Jenny to continue the meeting to Friday at 2 p.m. Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, how do you vote?
In favor. Good night.
Thank you. Alderman Cruz?
Favor, thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Alderman Thompson?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Penix?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Boyer.
In favor. Good morning.
Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.
All right.